Welcome back to Natural AF. I'm your host, Isaac.
And I'm Alexa.
And this show is all about reconnecting to nature and your natural state of being. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you might see that there's something different about the way we look now with these new mics.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some upgrades.
Yeah. Recently. So shout out to all of my family, but really my brother and sister-in-law, Luke and Siobhan. My brother, like Isaac, thank God he's a bit of a techie. He's into all the things and knows all the things that I have no clue about. He's listened to some of our episodes and was like, they really need to sort their audio out. And he's researched what are the best podcast mics, and these are our Christmas gifts from them and also my parents. So a big thank you to them. We love them. I never thought I'd get so excited about unwrapping a microphone before, but it was the best gift and such a great surprise. Hey, we had no idea.
Yeah, so that's going to go a long way to helping us with our mission here at Natural AF and sharing information and guests and connecting people with information that's going to help make your relationships better, help you live healthier, happier lives.
And so just a little bit of housekeeping, just because we did mention this on a previous episode that we were going to aim to do one-on-one episodes, just Isaac and I, about once a month. But this is our first, more of a roundtable discussion because we've got more than one guest on, and we've got a lot more of those planned for 2025 and beyond that. So we really want to focus on them and focus on just getting more guests on because we've got a ton of people lined up, and we'll just kind of do our one-on-one episodes whenever. Yeah,
these roundtables are really fun. It's a really good chat and there's a lot of energy going on. This one's a bit longer than our normal episodes and it's worth the whole thing. I mean, you got 4 people, having fun, talking, sharing life experiences. Yeah,
I think it would be almost impossible to keep a roundtable discussion under an hour and a half. Yeah. Because you've just got, there's more people, there's more talking. In this particular episode with our very dear friends, Dave and Erin Armstrong. For anyone that doesn't know Erin, you'll get to know her a bit in this episode. And she's a little firecracker. We love her. And it would be impossible to keep our conversation within 90 minutes. She's got a lot to say. She's also hilarious. She's so funny. So it was a very nice balance of really important topics, I would say. And then, we keep it really lighthearted and there were lots of laughs and it was lots of fun to record.
Yeah. Yeah. So the episode's got things to do with business, with relationships, challenges, and we'll address a little bit of the changes that have happened with the LFM recently.
So the Living Free movement, as some of you may or may not know about already, because we did have Dave on previously, I think it was episode 16. The Living Free movement is what Dave and Erin behind the scenes have created together with some collaborators who still have a lot to do with the platform. But there have been some changes in recent months. So even for people that aren't LFM members but have been following along, there have been some things that have been made public. And so for anyone that has any questions about the integrity or the authenticity of Dave and the Living Free movement, I think this episode is going to answer a lot of those questions for you, just by way of Dave and Erin being who they are, which really shines through in this episode. So that's all I'm going to say about that. We love Dave and Erin with all our hearts. We are so blessed to not only work with them within the Living Free movement, but call them friends, very dear friends. They feel like family. They have the most beautiful children and everything that they do is done with so much love. That's really their primary goal, is to help others and to really raise others up.
And if you're new here, so this show, Natural AF, is sponsored by our business, Natural Art Form. We've just had our first order out of Dubai, which is such a great surprise. Thank you so much for trusting us. And the product they purchased was our flagship product, Alleviate. So Alleviate is a topical remedy. I've used it for shoulder pain. I've used it for muscle recovery. And other people have a bunch of reviews, great reviews on our website. So you can go to naturalartform.com, click on the link to see the product and read some of the reviews. There's people that have had issues with, nerve damage and all kinds of other things and have found that this helps relieve the body. It soothes. It's very good. Now they're trying it out in Dubai. So very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in that, we have a code NaturalAF10. You'll get 10% off your first order for listeners of this show. So type that code in at checkout. And don't forget to sign up for our mailing list.
We're launching our first newsletter for February. We're getting ready to get that out this week, which is super exciting. And we're going to aim to send out a monthly newsletter just to keep everyone in the loop, because we've got a lot planned for 2025 for Natural Art Form and the podcast. So we'll have all of that in that newsletter. So join the mailing list at naturalartform.com. If you'd like to support the show in another way, we would greatly appreciate wherever you're watching or listening to this, liking, sharing it with anyone that you think will get benefit out of listening, and follow or subscribe. And you can also enable notifications on some platforms. And we're also on another couple of new platforms, I believe.
You can find us on Amazon Music and Audible, and you can leave comments there, support the show. Without further ado, we're going to play a little intro to LFM to give you an idea of what it is. This is a fun movement. We've found a lot of friends here. It's almost like having a secondary family, and we're just excited to see where they go. So check them out, and we'll get on with the show.
Somehow, we're the crazy ones for not wanting to drink fluoridated water or eat food that's been sprayed with poison. We're the ones who didn't want an experimental vaccine. Yet somehow, we're crazy for not wanting to live our lives in fear. Well, if we're the ones deemed crazy when we walk out in public, then let's move to the private and join the Living Free movement, a private online platform where we all can be crazy. Living Free is where we can connect with like-minded community and do apparently crazy things, like share information without censorship and support each other to live our best, most prosperous lives. It's where we can meet with alternative health experts and get community support for all of our health concerns. It's where we can attend live webinars and get questions answered in real time without the help of health insurance or pharmaceutical drugs, which, according to mainstream standards, is totally nuts. It's kooky to learn how to live off-grid, grow produce, and start a medicinal garden. It's wacky to have resources for homeschooling and education programs led by critical thinkers and actual historians. It's lunacy to learn how to protect our assets with private trusts and private membership associations. Apparently, in this day and age, finding solutions and creating the new are crazy behaviors? And if that's the case, fine then. We don't want to be normal. We want a place where we all can be crazy. Visit livingfreemovement.org to get your all-access pass to crazy.
So for those of you that are regulars to the podcast, you should already know Dave Armstrong from the Living Free Movement, who we had on for episode 16. If you haven't watched that episode, go and check it out. It was a great interview. We had a great chat. And today he's joined with his wife, Erin. So Erin is a business owner, entrepreneur, and scriptwriter for some of Hollywood's biggest production companies and streaming services. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we have recorded, actually, you and I. We
did, but we're sitting on that one. It hasn't gone to air yet, so we're just waiting for your career to implode for that one too.
Yeah. Sorry.
We will release it. It's just a matter of when.
It's pending. Yeah. It's pending.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is our first sort of roundtable type discussion with more than one guest. And today's episode is a lot about relationships, business, and
how to balance the two, especially when you work together and live together and work from home. It can be quite a handful.
And
have you guys got any suggestions? Because we're still trying to work it out.
It's been 23 years and you know nothing.
We're like both exploring like these unexplored areas of the Amazon. So we're like, all right, our current situation is don't go over there. There's quicksand.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, honestly, it's just more going to be, I think we're just going to help each other to feel better about our situations, because I think it is kind of tricky to navigate. And like you said, I don't think there is an answer. There is one way, and especially with different personalities and different dynamics and different circumstances, like you guys have kids as well. I guess it'll just be a discussion around just everything that it entails to live together, work together, build businesses together, build a brand. Like you guys have done that with Living Free Movement. Isaac and I are in the process of doing that with Natural Art Form and the Natural AF podcast. And we're definitely just learning as we go. And it'll be so great to talk to you guys because you guys have done this in so many different settings. So for anyone that doesn't know, I know you spoke about this a bit in your episode with us, Dave, already, but in terms of the both of you working, so when you were CEO of the businesses that you were running, Erin was also working in those companies too, right? So do you guys want to talk a bit about that first?
Yeah, I mean, the first one that we did together was Dive Antarctica, and Erin was actually my ghost writer because I'm not very good at writing. So she wrote on my behalf for some diving magazines and gave me a bit of a profile, which helped us sell spots to Dive Antarctica. So the administration, all of the things behind the scenes, she was there from the start. And just that project alone, that was a year and a half in the making, and it was a lot of money. I had to swap jobs because the dive store that I was working for didn't want me to sell a dive trip because obviously they sell dive trips. So I had to go back to hotels and work there for a period. So there was a lot of support even back then. We're only a new couple at that stage, maybe a year or two in. So I was 23. I think we met when I was...
Yeah, the age is irrelevant, really, on mentioning that.
Right. So
were you going with Dave and doing the dives and all that stuff? Did you go on some of those Antarctic trips?
No, God, no. Absolutely not. This is not my wheelhouse.
Wow. Well, that's...
No, I'm with you, Erin. Isaac wanted to go free diving in Mexico, and I was like, you can go and do that by yourself. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, he's done that. There's some empty caves and, everything like that. No, he has no fear, right? So he wants to experience life, experience everything, do all of these things. And I'm quite okay with just sitting back and going, awesome, because I know you, because I know you in here. That's how he has to live. So for me to be a partner that it can help support that, you have to go with that. There's no option of like trying to, gaslight him into going in a different direction. Like everything he said he's wanted to do, he's wanted to do it, and I've just got to go along with it. Like the craziest stuff, and I sit there and I just go, yep. Okay. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, that's a lot of work administratively. Yes, I'm going to be asked to do that. But you have to. If something is in someone's soul to do and you're with that person, that is my job.
And I think that's a critical thing for relationships in general, like forget business relationships. But the way I measure if someone is, the right person for you is, are they helping you to be your best version? Or are they trying to bring you down? Are they supporting you in developing yourself, in pushing yourself? Are they encouraging you and doing that? Because if they're not the right person. And if they're not encouraging you, often couples will try to, remove their friendship group or those sorts of things. If they're doing that, that's another red flag. So for me, Erin's always been that support, and she's always, as crazy, of the things that I've come up with, she's always supported that. And the same on the movie, stuff for Erin, which we'll get into as well. But, that's a critical element to, I think, a healthy, successful relationship is to be supporting each other to be that best version. And if they're not that, like, find someone else, because life's too short to not fulfill your dreams and aspirations and have a real crack.
Right.
And I don't necessarily agree with absolutely every decision. Like, I was quite hesitant about him going over to Arizona and doing the child trafficking, obviously. And I was pregnant at the time with our daughter, Frankie.
Wow.
But I knew he had to do it. It was just this thing. I knew he had to do it. I knew that it was going to drive him crazy if I said no to that he would feel like he didn't try. That it would be something that he would look back on and go, I didn't give it a crack. And he wanted to really just categorically know that what he was waking up to was really happening. in order to make decisions down the track. But that one was hard because that one obviously pregnant, at home, the level of attack that you get from going into that world as well is really difficult. But the support doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to back every single idea, as in like you've got to be so much, oh yeah, that's a fantastic idea, thumbs up, go do it. But when he's committed to something, I will put that aside and I'll go, there's a reason, because he just has this innate ability to go, this is the path I'm meant to be on, and for whatever reason, and it does, generally speaking. I will deny it later that I said it, but for now, it's generally the right decision.
Yeah, you both make such good points because, both what you said, Erin, and that just backs up what Dave said, is that like it takes such a deep level of trust to be able to do that as well, and to be okay with, because I can relate to that too. Like even just like with the freediving thing, like I love doing adventure stuff and whatever, but I'm not to the extreme where Isaac loves that. Like he has an affinity to that stuff, and he just like loves doing like the hardest thing possible, and I'm just like, that is not me. But yeah, just being okay with when he wants to go and do that. It's okay. And like you said, it's like, I'm not going to do that. I might disagree with even doing some things that might, for me, seem very dangerous, and I might, fear for his safety or whatever, but just trusting that he's got this and he can do it, like whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I think if you stifle that as well, and that's intrinsically who this person was born to be, you're only going to damage it down the track. So your relationship's going to suffer later on if you put up all of these walls and you say no and you make it really difficult and the roadblocks just keep mounting up. There's only going to be resentment because the person can't be who they really are.
Yeah.
I don't always agree, but in generally I will back the ideas. Yeah. I'll back what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. And I have trust in his decision making.
Yeah.
And I just complain about it like subtly, like
Well, and for men, like it's really critical to grow and earn that trust as well. Like you don't just, to some degree, if you're in love, you walk in, there's goo eyes, and they just kind of put trust on if you're a strong man. But if you get that trust given to you at first, and then you don't treat it properly or you betray it, you can lose that really quickly. So it's important to maintain it, but also just, like you show up in a way that is deserving of that, and you treat it with respect, because it is so valuable. Like Dave said, if you don't have someone, like if anyone's ever been in a relationship where they've had someone that doesn't offer support or like help them out, or at least just not get in the way actively and like get you kicked out of special forces training or something like that, then
that's his story.
that sucks, and you need to find a way out of that. But when you do find someone like Lex, with the way that she helps with the business and jumps in despite some of my crazy ideas or my trial and error nature, she supports that, and it's like feeding my soul, but it's worth more than gold.
And I think I think this is part of the reason we wanted to have this roundtable with you guys, because it's becoming much more common. We're seeing it a lot, especially in these more freedom-based communities where people are leaving their 9-to-5 jobs and they're doing their own thing. And a lot of couples are now coming together and starting businesses together. And like for me, I've never done this with a partner before, and it just brings a whole different level of what you're building together. Like, I think most people think of like you build a life together and you get married and you have kids and you buy a house and like you build that home life together. But I don't know, for me, it's like it just goes a step deeper when you're actually building a business and a brand around who you are, and that is part of that life that you're building together.
Yeah, well, for us, we probably did everything wrong as well.
Yeah.
And so, we learned across that period the part of boundaries, because I can remember when we first started, it was a bit of fake it till you make it situation with setting up an adventure company and then setting up the performance center stuff. That it was more the adventure company really, but we had the phone hooked up at home. That was the office phone. I would not answer that phone because you didn't want, you know, I'm the CEO on paper, and then Erin would go down and answer it as the business. And so there was this.
Yeah, that was great for my self-esteem. Just that's enough.
and the phone sitting in our bedroom, in a one-bedroom apartment in Melbourne CBD. But, you know, that was part of the sacrifice. Even when, you know, we ended up building the high-performance centres and that sort of thing, Erin took, you know, she would run the reception. And until we could afford to get other staff to support her, she would have to take that position, you know, and that was really difficult in some ways. There was resentment in some ways from Erin because she had to take this position. I can remember this guy turned up with his resume, and he wanted a job with us, and he handed the resume to Erin behind the desk, and he said, can I speak to the manager or the CEO or something? And Erin said, oh no, he's not here at the moment. And he said, well, can you pass on, can I give this to someone important or something? And she turned around and she went, ripped up the resume and said, I'm actually the owner as well, and you've just told me everything I need to know about you. See you later.
I love it.
You know, there was these sacrifices across that time, but there was also resentment for that. And then as we grew in staff, you know, Erin becomes one of the team in many ways, where she's got, you know, a department of front office and education staff and that sort of thing. And, you know, there's times in which I felt she wasn't performing properly or communicating properly. And so how do you deal with that without upsetting? So, you know, you're in a position that you've been put as CEO or self-appointed CEO, and then you're, you know, in this position where you've got to have a chat and say, hey, this isn't, you know, good enough. And then there's a whole lot of resentment. So we have...
I don't remember being told that I wasn't good enough. So, yeah, I don't remember.
So the communication, though, was, you know, terrible. Like, I can clearly remember a conversation with Erin, and we were really close as a couple. And she said, this is tearing us apart. And she goes, I think if we keep doing this, it's going to affect our relationship. And I said, at the time, because all I was focused on is getting the business up and running and, you know, succeeding, I said, well, that's the price that we're going to pay. And, you know, it took us many years to learn how to respect each other's boundaries, to have, you know, to go, well, that's your area, and to not get involved and cross that. And so I think, you know, we did a lot wrong before we learned how to do a lot right. And so, there, you know, for a period there, it was quite toxic, you know.
And there was no switch off, right? Because you're working in your business.
Right.
And it is hard work. And in elite sport in Melbourne, really hard, right? So there's no downtime. So you're leaving at like 11 o'clock at night, you're going home, you're doing that. We actually lived across the road in a house where our performance centre was. So there is no distinction between work and home. So, and there was no switch off. And then I'm back there at 5 a.m. again because athletes come in at 6. And so the entire part of your life, your relationship, every conversation you have is all about work. Had I known what I know now, I would have set boundaries, like Dave said, about switching off, coming back to each other and prioritizing that. Even in the middle of massive busy stuff and big contracts, it's super necessary to not make everything about your projects and what you're doing. Even if you can only do that for like 20 minutes a week, even if success is really important and you've got to take success when it comes, and if you're doing well and you're elevating, you want to ride that wave, right? You don't want to do everything for nothing. But it's just about being able to just even break it down to like a picnic for 25 minutes in between something, and then not speaking to each other like you're employed by each other either, the two of you. So I found that difficult. I found the CEO telling me what to do in my house type thing. Like, I found that really difficult because I was like, you're still my partner outside of that. So learn to sit back to not being David Armstrong, CEO of, you know, this business. But that took years to do.
Yeah, it was
really hard.
a really difficult navigation. And then when you're in it, and it's such a highly strung sort of business, like so much pressure we had, you know, in staffing and facilities alone were probably $750,000 a year in costs. So you're talking about a lot of money going in and out of the business just to keep it afloat. And so you've got that pressure, and so you don't really have the time to say, you know, time out, let's work things out, let's take the time for each other. And so that was really difficult. So for us, it was probably a longer learning curve. And I think over the years, you know, I don't even know if I spoke about this on the previous one, but learning how to prioritize your life allows you to sort of put that time back in and realize that if you take some time for, you know, God, yourself, you know, your partner, you know, those things as a priority, your actual work life and everything else works better. But, you know, when, especially being young and being straight into business and working together, I just thought it was work. I thought more work will create, you know, what we want.
Success.
And then sometime down the track, we can have the nice house, the nice car, and we can sit back and go, look what we've done. And we can then repair, and we can, you know, go on holidays, and we can do all of these things. But if we don't do these things now, we're never going to get there. We're going to fall apart. You know, our business will fall apart before we get there. So, you know, it's learning, I think, now how to prioritize your life and put a little bit more time in, at least, to your relationship along the way.
Yeah, it's really, that's probably my biggest piece of advice, is you've got to make time for it. And you've even got to make time for it just like over a dinner and have a chat and just be like, this is what I'm struggling with today. You know, how am I feeling about, but making it about your actual feelings and your emotions and who you are as a person, not the work. The work has to be like off the table in some discussions, because that became our entire life. That's all we would talk about. That's all we were focused on. That's all of my criticism of him, all his criticism of me. And it was never about the person. Fundamentally, it must have been there. Otherwise, both of us would have walked. So it's there, but it just was not nurtured. It wasn't respected over the success.
Yeah, it's such a good point to make. I know we can definitely relate to that, and we've had to set boundaries, and it's still hard, especially because now working from home. But I totally get that too. Like you said, you lived across the road from where you worked, and it's like the closer you are because in our place, we're literally in like a little cabin in the woods basically, and it's kind of like studio living. We're kind of in one living room, and then we just have the separate kitchen and bathroom. And I struggle just with not even having an office. Like, I just need an office space where I can go and have a separate room, so that when I'm finished working, I can leave and have that separation. And not having even that is really difficult. But we've definitely gone through the same thing where we've had to prioritize our relationship and our time together, and so that we're not just always just only talking about work and just working, and just making a point to, you know, go out, you know, and whether it's like, you know, if we're invited to social events, or just making time to go and have dinner, or, you know, things like that. And I think, Dave, you made a really important point, because I think I would have said that it's very common for men to be like that, but I think in this day and age, it's common for men and women where they do put work first, because especially in like the current economic climate, it's like, we've got to pay the bills, we've got a mortgage to pay, we've got to, you know, send the kids to school, and it's like everything becomes about work. And you do, I mean, you see it on a collective scale, like relationships are definitely suffering. And I think the parents' relationship with their kids also suffers in that way, where they're not spending quality time with their children because work's always coming first.
Yeah, that's a massive thing that we do talk about that a lot. We're like, oh, we've put so much into this week, or when you have to say to the kids, hey guys, can you just, you know, go do some craft or something? Mummy's got to do like at least 20 more minutes to get these emails out. And there's this instant amount of guilt that you always feel when that happens. But we talk about it a lot. We're like, look, let's put this down. It's about the kids now. And again, if you can say, no, mummy has to do this or daddy has to do this, but then you back that up with then making it about them, I don't think it does any damage. You can't give them 100% of your attention every single second of the day and run a business and run multiple businesses.
Right.
So I just think the balance has to be there. And it doesn't always have to be equal, completely equal balance. It just, you've got to be conscious of, have I done too much of the other this week? Have I prioritized this? And the other thing that I think is really important that we really didn't start to do until we kind of started living free was that we're just making sure a lot that our values are aligned. Like, are we on the same page? Are we going in the same direction? Do you have any issue with, how you're feeling about this? So we're more conscious of having those discussions. Is this feeling authentic? Is this feeling the way that we need to go? And addressing problems a little bit earlier maybe than previously in our 20s, where it just like escalates to just catastrophe.
3 days of not talking to each other but working together.
Yeah. I can imagine that was just a blissful moment, just to be in that energy. Yeah.
Screaming matches. Like, it's almost appalling behavior now. When you look back, it's such shameful stuff. Like, the stuff that we say to each other, like, we just would not say that now. Like, not as bad.
Well, I used to have this thing because when you're in an argument and it keeps going at you
forever.
Like, my thing was just like, if I just push this button and I say this, then she's not going to talk to me for a while, and then I've got some peace and quiet. So it's like you're sitting there and you're going, okay, I can keep dealing with this, or I can push this little button here, and there's this little voice in your head going, push the button.
The voices,
So you're sort of dealing with that sort of thing. But, it is really difficult. I know when we had our first child, we're running the high performance centers, the adventure company, all of that. And we actually took a 50-50 work split. So one would be at home 2 to 3 days and the other vice versa. And so basically ever since our children have been born, we've taken a 50-50 work split on most of those things. Sometimes that's changed a little bit more lately because of me going away for the working visa and things like that.
I was just going to say 50-50. Okay.
But as far as, when they were born and everything, that's how we managed our workload, because one would go to work and manage the company, and the other one would stay at home because we never wanted to have a babysitter. We never wanted to take them to, a creche, those sorts of things. So, that was really important for us. And that was really good for me to also release some of that work part where I had to take my daughter down to the park and play and do those things. So there was a lot of, happiness in the fact that I had no other choice, because there would be too much workload on Erin if she wasn't in there, and vice versa. So we had to always manage, what have you got on today? Can you do this today? Because and then I'll go, I can push that back a day and you can do that. So that, I think, was probably the start of negotiating, how to best manage our workloads.
And our needs as well. And I think the mistake for me was going back to work 2 weeks after having my child.
Oh, wow. That's super
to try
quick.
to prove myself, I think, in an industry where I had put myself in these lower positions that are still so vitally important. So when I say lower positions, it's the way that they're viewed within a high-performance sport, relatively male-dominated industry. I don't think they're lower level. It's the most important part of a functioning business, is in your administration, your customer service, your HR, how you're managing your team, all of that. But to prove myself, I think I just went, I can do this. I can go back, 2 weeks after a Caesar, and I'm going to go straight back into the office, and I'm going to work the same hours that I would work because Dave would be home with the baby. That was a massive mistake, huge mistake. So as much as I think it did some good for Dave to be able to, like what you just said, to be able to not be so completely stressed out these 17-hour days, it was the wrong thing for me to do completely, for the motive that I had of just proving myself that, yes, you can have a baby and you can still do all of this stuff, boss bitch, all of that bullshit that I now don't believe in. So that's a huge mistake. That your birth process and, your postpartum and the connection you need to have with your partner when you're going through that should never, ever be secondary to the job, ever. That's my advice. Like, people will disagree with me and they'll probably watch this and they'll be like, that's bullshit. I totally believe that it's completely just spiritually not right, connected.
Yeah, I agree.
You
And
need to take time to balance that and recharge and regenerate and not try to compete with people that are, well, now that we know more about like human design and how we're built and how we're different energy types and everything, it's like, you're not made to work like Dave. You know, you're not made to go out and do things his way. That's his type and his build and his specific gifts. And same thing with Lex. Like, I'm not made to be as organized as try as I might to be as organized as possible. I am never going to be like that, like organized. It's just going to make me probably miserable, and it'll still be shit, and it'll just frustrate her. So there's no way I can do her job. It's like, yeah, I just have to stay in my lane and do what I do and deal with my own self-criticisms of what I'm not doing better, you know, and try to upskill myself. But yeah, recharge is definitely important.
Person, you realize that what you're collectively bringing to the table works out in the end. So everything that I'm shit at, Dave's great at it, right? And everything that he's shit at, I'm really good at. And instead of like comparing apples with apples and one person feeling more superior to the other, you just start to go, hang on a second, this is like a divine reason that these two particular people are together with the same fundamental beliefs that they have, and that you can do this really well and this person can do this really well, and then can't do what you can do and you can't do what they do. And you stop the competition part of that and you respect what that person's bringing to the table and why they are the chosen to bring that to the table. And once you start letting go any sort of ego or competition or shame that you can't do that and they can, the better it works, because the more respect for your abilities and level of contribution you end up having. And Dave, honestly, in the last decade has gotten so much better at that. The recognition of skill set of people, of, you know, wanting them to be really good at what they do, recognizing it, and then I have become less resentful of being placed in certain positions where my workload increases based on the, you know, desire that someone has to do crazy, ridiculous shit that most people probably can't even fundamentally work out how to put together. And then, hey, babe, can you just work this out? And I'll be like, okay, give me a minute. But when you have faith in that there's a reason that it's coming together with these two people, I've let a lot go and a lot kind of comes together. And living free has probably been the easiest example of that.
Yeah, that's why I take my hat off to you guys and I have so much respect for what you've done with Living Free. Like, obviously, and all the stuff you've done prior to that, but I've seen firsthand like how much work has gone into like literally building the Living Free movement from the ground up, like from nothing, and the amount of work that goes into it, like day in and day out. And it's inspiring, and it's so impressive, because it really is, you know, the two of you doing the bulk of the work. And I know you've had other people come in and everyone plays their role, and there's different people that do, you know, like Nick and Darren have their you know, they do their things on the platform, and a lot of the members do a lot. I know Isaac and I have done some work for you guys as well. But yeah, the bulk of it and bringing things to life. And again, we saw that with the festival. We spoke about that with Dave on the previous episode. And and I think it's so important when you're doing something like that with a partner, that recognizing each other's strengths and weaknesses, it's crucial. It really is, because if you're going to constantly be trying to be good at stuff that you're just naturally not good at, you're just always going to be fighting this uphill battle. And I think when you're able to recognize that too, you just complement each other so much better. Like Isaac and I can see that very clearly in a lot of the ways where it just works perfectly, where the things that I'm good at, he's not, and vice versa. So we can just complement each other really well. Now, does that mean that we never have any disagreements and no arguments? Absolutely not, because we always are going to have, and I think, again, that's very normal with in relationships and in business relationships, is that there are going to be disagreements. There's going to be different points of view. There's going to be different perspectives. So it's important to always take them all into consideration, but then there's always going to be compromise. There's always going to, and like you guys said too, I think it's really important to note
as well, that at different times there's going to be different things that you have to compromise. So for women, when you're having children and you need to be at home with your baby and you need to be recovering from your pregnancy and your birth and all these things.
Yeah, speaking to that, on this project, Living Free, how does that differ from the other businesses that you've done? Does this feel like maybe version 3.0 or 4.0, where now you're doing something that's balancing maybe like a more sole purpose, where you two come together and are creating this, combining like a spiritual, not just for business and monetary gain, but out of what's good for humanity? Does that, I don't know, does that feel like a different type of business that you're doing now, like with a different purpose and energy?
It definitely is. We've always been a service-based type thing. So even the adventure stuff of doing these crazy things, what I enjoyed was taking someone who didn't think that they could do these things, and then they achieve this lifelong dream, often the pinnacle of what they've ever done, and seeing that success. And then when I was doing the personal training, I looked after people with disabilities. So I used to, have people in electric wheelchairs and different things, and seeing them achieve different things. So there's always been this desire to help people be their best versions, right through to the performance sports, the rehabilitation, all of those things. That's continued on. That's still my thing now, where I love to see people succeed and come to those realizations and improve themselves and that sort of thing. But Living Free is probably the first one where there's been more of a spiritual attachment. There's been more of a guidance of, and trying to have faith and lean into that, where I never previously would even think of having a spiritual aspect in business. Trying to listen to what your heart's telling you, trying to, not react to certain situations where your normal, situation you would react. But, in these ones, you're like, okay, there's something more spiritually going on that I need to respect and I need to let play out. And so for those sorts of things, Living Free has been completely different. And surprisingly, in our waking up period, Erin was a little bit behind in, say the vaccines, but she had trust. And I said, let's just hold and do a bit more research. And the child trafficking, that's crazy. And then I think, from what I'm seeing, so there was this part of waking up, to the point now she's passed me on so many things where she'll bring stuff now. So there's none of that now, but that was always a bit of a stress. I can remember, I made certain promises. I would say, I'll make sure this happens, and I wouldn't know how to do it, but I didn't, want our kids to suffer or anything else like that. So I'd say, don't worry, I'll make this happen. And, by having that intent, things would actually work out. And that's now followed through into Living Free, where there's a lot of trust now that there's something bigger at play, and we're on a bigger mission, and it's not us alone. It's not the team alone. There's a spiritual aspect to what we do, and having faith that you're on the right path, I think, is completely different. And I think the kids, they're involved in so many ways. They learn about the business. They, our eldest daughter, she wants to take it over, when she's older, those sorts of things. They love coming to the festival,
Oh, that's great.
Being involved in the working bees, and they know that we're trying to help. We're trying to help people, in all different situations. And they got to see that over the COVID stuff as well, is that, I wouldn't wear a mask and I wouldn't, do all of these things. And I'd explain that we're helping people with exemptions and all of that. And then the trust was built because they saw what was happening in the world, and then they saw that these things weren't true. And then I think respect that your dad wasn't crazy and your mum wasn't crazy, and, that sort of thing has cemented the family dynamic to the fact that they have a lot of trust in what we're doing, and a lot of respect in allowing us to have those times. So, one thing that we try to focus on now is allowing, if Erin's got a lot on her workload, I've got to recognise that and try to pick up some of the workload in the other parts of our life. and vice versa. Recognizing that sometimes, because of the way in which there's the dynamic in the work life, that you have to then support in the other parts of that life, just so that they can concentrate and get that off. Because if they're holding that and then they're trying to do everything else as well, it's too much stress. And then that's when you start to have, that breakdown in communication and all of that sort of thing, because you're not respecting each other's work.
Oh yeah, I'll go full bitch. Like if I'm pushed too far. I have
no. Me too. The bitch will come out.
He's actually not lying.
I call it when I'm feeling bitchy moo. I don't know where that phrase came out.
He got it from, so I say like Suki, you being such a Suki Lala. Like it's a real Aussie thing to say. They don't say that. And one day he couldn't remember the term and he goes, sorry for being a bitchy moo. So that's his thing now.
I love it. Make a t-shirt. I love it. It just feels like it's absolutely meant to be. And I think that every decision that we're making now, we are very honoured for those opportunities to make those decisions, but also we are very aware that we have to make the right ones. So everything is done. I mean, Dave's got more integrity than any person I've ever met in my entire life. He is massively loyal. So if he says, I'm going to do this, I'll go, yeah, you are. And the festival was one thing. Dave's like, hey, I'm going to do this festival. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I was thinking, like little like gathering, maybe 100 people or whatever. And then he's like, no, I'm going to do like this proper like festival. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, there's no way this will happen. Like this is like 3 months or 5 months. He's like, no, I'm going to do this because it needs to happen. And if he says he's a doer, like he says, if I'm going to do this, then he's going to do it. Like he's led by whatever. So I've just leaned right into that. I go with it. I have so much faith about Living Free. I actually think that Living Free is kind of just really in its infancy of just like really becoming. But once I can get it out there with the intention behind what it's meant to be, I think it could be incredible. Like there is so much scope for things that we talk about strategically, like really every night we talk about things about what we can bring in and how we can move it forward and what services we want to add to it and what people we want to bring in. And it's just a constant evolution, but it always seems to just not be as hard as other businesses that we've run, right? And it's not really a business. So don't really consider it like that, but everything kind of falls into place as divine as it's meant to go.
And what I was thinking, and maybe that's part of that question I was asking earlier, was this business, when you're laying awake at night and you're talking about the business, does it feel like in the past when you were talking about the business and it was just like too much? Now, does it feel that this is maybe something you're both passionate about and it's integrated into your life versus you're just always looking for a jumping off point to sell the business or to finally make it and then sail off into the sunset? Now it's like, this is us. This is what we are doing.
This is more him. This is the him that I think he was meant to be. And I think the lessons that we've learned is that, Dave never wanted to be the guy. He's just not that guy. He just doesn't have that ego or that kind of sense of wanting to have, he doesn't have social media. Like he just doesn't care about what people think and what people follow him and what comments. He just doesn't care about it. But the more that we're learning and the more that patterns repeat and the more that we speak to people and the more that we look at what it can become, the more obvious it is to us that, taking that lead role and pushing it in the purpose that's purely with the right intent and integrity forward. And then me not being worried about not being enough like that and coming in kind of like this crazy gin drinking, dark writing, script writing weirdo and coming in and going, oh, there's no place for me here. And so I'll step back and I'll just do my job the way that I can do it and administratively provide support and do that, but no one will know who I am and I'm not going to form friendships with anyone and I'll just do my job. And learning that, no, there really is a place for me to come into this and to share and connect and to not separate myself like I always have. And that's been great.
I think that's the next evolution as well is Erin stepping forward in some of those more visual aspects as well. She's really loved meeting the people. She was like, you go do those things. I'm not really interested in meeting these people or whatever. Then she came and she's like, these people are awesome. And I'm like, I know, this is what I'm saying. Like,
I was really surprised because I was like, what is this? My wheelhouse. Like, what am I walking into? Is it going to be all like kumbaya, bloody whatever? And I'm just like, nah. I'm
doing
just,
the stage,
I'm going to embarrass you. Like, just don't bring me. Like, I can't. It's like I will say something and it will be over for everyone. And Dave knows me, so there's this element of fear that he still has to this day, 23 years later. Where
he needs it though.
Why?
He needs that fear.
Yeah. But yeah, it was amazing. Like the people are incredible. Like you guys we've met. Like just people they're all on the same frequency and everything is, intentional and respected and there's integrity and loyalty and everything in that. And that is not what you get in like business.
Yeah.
Everyone will stab you in the back. Like you just,
Yeah. And this is what I love. Like, even just when you were talking about like how living free feels so different for you and you don't look at it like a business. I think that we feel the same about natural art form. Like, yes, it's a business, but when you do pour so much of your heart and soul into it, it's not just about making money. And I've never really been driven by money. And, in the case of natural art form, like, Isaac goes out of his way to make sure that the products he makes are as natural as possible. He sources as many organic ingredients as he can.
If I could grow it myself, I would, but it's just
like he puts so much care into it. It's not just like, we're just making a product to sell to make money. It's like, it's very different. And and same, like we often will talk about where we want to go with it. And it is like, even just listening to you talk about like the things that you talk about at night and it's exciting. Like it's very different to just like, we can do this and like, this will increase our profit margins. And like, it's just about like, what do we envision for it? And when you're pouring yourself into it, that's what it becomes. And I think what you just said too is such a testament to the Living Free movement and how you guys really are at the core of it, because like you're saying, I didn't want to come in and I didn't know what these people were going to think of me and I was going to say something wrong or whatever. But like, that's what the Living Free movement is. It's so accepting of everyone from all walks of life, no matter where they're at. One of the things I love about the platform and the community is that, we don't all have to agree on the same thing. We don't all have to agree with flat earth or ball earth or whether dinosaurs existed or whatever. Like I actually, that's what I love about it, is that everyone brings something different. And as long as we're all respectful and we treat each other well, like that's the beauty of that community. And that's just you guys too. Like you're just so authentic. And I think that's the core of Living Free.
Like every single time that something will come onto the platform or someone will make a comment or a presenter will come on, and it's not necessarily aligned with my true beliefs, I know that they're there for a reason, because I do feel like everything's divinely led. So I'm like, even if the purpose of this conversation with this particular presenter or podcast reaches the one person it's supposed to, then that is what we're supposed to do. And the whole principle of all of this was uncensored information without judgment. You don't have to align with every single thing that gets presented on there, because if it's there for whatever that person is manifested and they're searching for, and they're on there and they've come into the community, and at whatever point something aligns for them, that's meant to happen. So the only thing I think I get a little bit challenged by, and I don't want to do my normal like screenwriting thing where I write some vicious shit back in the comments, is because I go that's their journey. But when people become just like really stuck on a point and they just can't get past it, and I'm hoping that within the community and the trust that everyone in the platform, that's members included, like everybody is building with each other, that eventually that just absolutely won't happen, and people will just be really even if they don't agree, they'll just realize that it's meant to be there for a reason. And
it's mostly self-monitored as well. Like the community,
we don't monitor comments
have taken ownership of it. So if someone's out of line, they sort of bring them back into line and sort of gently sort of ask questions of them, and you know that's really nice as well, because it's not, we don't have to do any censorship or any
moderating.
There's a way to moderate the comments. I think in the 4 years I've had 2 reports of inappropriate comments, something like that, like, you know, and
it's never been our intention or desire to ever kick out anyone either. So I think our numbers on that is maybe we've got rid of 2 like the entire 4 years, and they just had to go. Like it just divinely were like, absolutely.
Yeah, it really is a grass-fed, free-range community.
Yeah.
we're not in the business of sabotaging anyone's thought process or where they're at, but it just, that's probably my only thing is that when some come in with really set ideas, they sometimes take a little bit longer just to understand that there is a purpose for all information. You don't necessarily have to agree with it. But it's probably been the biggest, most passionate thing that I think I've watched Dave become part of. Like he's really, really focused on making this into what he believes it will be. And there's all this integrity and loyalty and support behind him that it definitely will happen. But it's the first thing that we've created where money has never even been a discussion, really. It has never been the center of anything. It's just been, how do we make it better? Doesn't matter what it costs. How do we improve it? Who do we bring on? How do we do this? How do we do that? So it's never been about how much can we make. I don't think we've ever had that discussion about living free.
We went through this stage in between. So I'm a director of Empower Movement as well, or on the board of Empower. And I was involved, you know, so it's been, I think, 7 years. So we actually had the business at the stage that it was towards the end of the businesses, but I was still working. And then there was this time in which we closed up the businesses. We had no money. And I was going off, and we ended up moving in with Erin's parents. This was a 2-bedroom house. We had 2 children.
Wow.
And I was pregnant.
And Erin was pregnant. Wow. And so Erin and I are sleeping on the fold-out couch in the main living room. It's a small little house because it's in Richmond, Victoria, which is, you know, the little workers' cottages. And I was getting up every day and walking to the library and working for Empower for free. And everything of what I was doing, it felt right, but every part of that, you know, normal mindset's like, go out and get a job, you bum. What are you doing working for free? Like, you've got a family to support. And releasing and having faith that I was on the right path. And the fact that I've got a wife that's sitting there going, no, do what you are meant to do. Meanwhile, I
did say that, but I was laying on the pull-out couch pregnant going, what the actual fuck?
But, you know, that was really, I think, that part for us from the previous business of letting go of that, you know, money and being more spirit-led and doing those things and having faith that it would work out. And it was strange because I did that and I just had this faith. I'm like, it's going to work out. I don't know how. And then we got this tax payment that came back for something we weren't expecting. And it was enough money for us to go and get a house and go and do those, you know, set ourselves back up and build ourselves back up. But it was a significant amount of money where we didn't have any. And, you know, we actually got married over that time as well while we were there.
Because it's $1,000. Like, seriously.
We did our wedding as a private wedding where we didn't register it or anything. We did it in the botanical gardens. We didn't pay for that area. So
we're supposed to, but we didn't get paid.
You're meant to book and pay, and we just rocked up and we just sort of snuck through and we're like, right, let's get married.
I love it.
You did the wedding runner. Yeah.
And we've been together for how many years at that stage?
20.
It was close to 20 years before we got married.
Wow.
So, you know, for us, there was this big change going on that sort of transitioned us across. And, you know, I still am with Empower now, but, you know, the amount of time I was doing full-time hours working on building their notice of liability creator and feeling led that I was meant to do this. And somehow the world was going to work out to a place where, you know, it paid off and, you know, set me on the right direction. And it has. It's very much been that ever since.
Yeah, there hasn't been much fear in the decisions we've made. I think the only thing that I had to get over was Dave's diagnosis. I had to really change my indoctrinated thinking on that.
Yeah.
But when
So, Erin, just in terms of a timeline, when was Dave diagnosed with all of that? Like, were you
2020?
So were you pregnant then, or had you just had?
No, I'd had Levi in August of that year.
Wow.
No,
okay.
August was the year before. Levi was born in 2019. My dad died in July 2020 of chemotherapy treatment.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And then Dave got diagnosed. It's a funny story. It's probably not for this podcast.
Chemotherapy. Did you know that chemotherapy originally was mustard gas?
Yeah, we had Daniel on and he was explaining that. My dad had a skin cancer on the top of his head. He had a PET scan. He had no spread. So they said to my father, who was 68 at the time, after he'd had the cancer removed and then they skin grafted it, that they wanted him to have preventative chemo and radiation, and it was this new version of this platinum drug type chemotherapy. And the regime for Dad was chemotherapy on a Monday and radiation Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it was for 6 or 7 weeks. And then my dad finished the chemo treatment on the 7th week, turned 69 on the Friday, and died on the Saturday.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
And had no other, like, he was healthy, he used to walk to work, he was, would get around, like, there was nothing, no other signs or symptoms. And so that was, and potentially, that may have impacted my decisions. I was still pretty set that I would never do chemo or anything like that. But, seeing that and then,
I think that was
that's pretty fresh. And I'm like, I'm not going down that route, but I didn't know where to go. And so that's where the research started, and that's where the platform came about, because we were trying to share that information. So, realistically, there's been all these blessings come from that diagnosis, and looking at the blessings rather than the negative has, been challenging in that. But it's,
Well, there'd be no Heal Me, there'd be no Living Free if Dave didn't have cancer. Because we even discussed it when Dave got diagnosed, and we spent 6 months trying to research alternative treatment, and everything is so heavily censored and everything is so difficult to find. And where do you buy B17? Where do you do this? Where do you do that? And I was like, Dave, you need to create a place where people can just log in and then everything is there, right? And so that's kind of how it happened. And I didn't know that it was going to become this off the back of that. But it wouldn't have been anything if he wasn't diagnosed. And
it was Erin's idea, and I was against it. I'm like, I don't want to be a cancer poster boy. Like, this is a speed bump on my road. Like, I'm going to get this cracked and I'm going to move on to something else. And, I actually don't like the whole talking about it stuff, because it's like it's labeling you, and then it's like, how do you talk about it, and tell the story and be truthful without making it about you. And there's this whole victim stuff that goes along with a diagnosis and those sorts of things. So I hate all of that. But then I saw what she was saying in making it easier for people. And so I actually stayed in the background at the very start, because I didn't, I was like, yep, I'll build it all. I'll do all of that. But I don't want my story to have anything to do with.
And I was always like, bullshit. You need to tell your story, because he just doesn't have fear. So it wasn't like a learned behavior. It was like, I'm not going to give it that. And he was not going to give it that from the start. I'm talking 3 days into this diagnosis, and he was like, I am not going to give it that. He never gave it that energy. He's been criticized for the treatments that he's done. He's been, labeled as being, sick and having this illness as a negative thing. And I'm sitting there going, this is the most positive thing that a person can bring to the table with a diagnosis of cancer. We don't even really view it that way anymore. But it's not negative. It's bringing, it's not bringing sickness to his ideas. It's elevating. Yeah. He's going, I've got this. How can I turn this around? How can I? There is a reason that I have this. There's a reason I'm going through it. Do we wish that he'd been able to be fully cured by now, in the terminology of that, and that he wasn't, put under as much physical pressure? Absolutely. I'd love him to not have that. But there's a reason that it is still ongoing. There's a lesson he truly believes that he's going to learn. And for me, as his wife, and the mother of 3 of his children, that there is a reason for it. I've had to surrender more than I've had to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally relate to that because, I did my first presentation on removing my breast implants and that on the LFM, and we've just released our podcast episode with me talking about that. And it was interesting actually because the 2 presentations I did were very different because more has unfolded for me. Yeah. And I can definitely relate to that because going through it and again, like having such a deep sense of regret that I'd even gone and gotten the breast implants in the first place and what they'd done to my body and all of this. But coming out of it now, I feel the same. I'm just like, for whatever reason, this was just part of my journey. And just in the last 5 months since my surgery, or say in the last 6 months, because I was starting to talk to people about it before I went in for surgery, the amount of women that have crossed my path that have said, I've had my breast implants in for so long and I think I need to get them out. Yeah. And I really needed to hear this. That, I mean, there was just one woman that commented on the LFM platform after the presentation that basically said that. And I was like, if that's the only person that got something out of this,
that one person, then it's 100% necessary.
Absolutely.
That's one person that absolutely had to hear it.
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking about his illness is that there's going to be a time and a place where it's just exactly the right thing that people have to hear. Like he has just gone, I am not going to give it the fear. I'm not going to believe what the mainstream say. Obviously, we're all educated enough over the last however long to know that the way that things are explained to us in terms of diagnosis and disease is bullshit. So there's a lot of credible stuff behind eliminating that fear. But he was definitely there way before me. I'm like, you need a PET scan. What is going on? Cut this out. Autopsy. I'm just like, autopsy. I'm like, this is what's going to happen. We need to see. I'm just like spiraling, right? Because I'm like, this is really
a core sample. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like freaking out.
Rectal checks weekly. Yeah.
Yeah. Dad had just died. I'm just like, it's so much there. But I've really just sometimes it creeps in, sometimes he turns around and he's like, this isn't the right energy. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, it's not. But you are braver than me, so you have to acknowledge it, and now you've got to deal with that. So you've got to now calm me down.
And I was going to say that I think sometimes it can be harder for the person that's not actually sick, because Isaac, we spoke about this in that episode about after my surgery, I was like, I'm not taking antibiotics. I'm not doing that. And he was kind of like, you're just being silly now.
Coming from a trauma surgery. I know my ego puffs up a little bit. Yeah. Of the 2 of us, which one has sat in and helped a surgery? I've seen them breathing and sweat dripping into the body cavity. And I'm like, you got to get antibiotics. You got to at least do that. You're going to have an infection and your nipples are going to go like this or something. But, yeah, it was a learning lesson.
Yeah. But I think it can be harder when it's not you going through it, because you don't know what's going on. And I think it's a feeling, I guess, of helplessness, because especially
control,
in a partnership, you want to be there for your partner. You want to be able to help them, especially when they're sick. It's I just always think of if your partner gets a flu, especially the man flu, you got to tend to them. You make them soup and you make them tea and you get them all the things that they need. But when it's something like that, there's almost nothing you can do.
So what was it? Tea and soup? I'll write that.
Tea and soup and a hand job.
One thing that I think is important in all of this is coming back to the business side of things, and is what we learned is that you've also got to give each other that time away. So Erin's got, or support them in doing something outside of it. So Erin's got her writing, and that's very much hers. She.
Oh yeah, I don't let him infiltrate because he has bad fucking taste. So I don't want any comments.
So she's got that, and then there'll be times in which you go, I just want to go away to my friend's house and just spend some time away. Cool, go do that. And I have my sports. I'll play hockey and things like that. She'll go, yep, go and play hockey. And so in managing your work life and your work, marriage or relationship side of things is also releasing that, because that time actually allows for growth as well for both of you. So I think that that's really important to respect, because you've already got intertwined work and your relationship, and then if you want to be a part of everything else they do, there's no separation.
Yeah.
So, allowing and encouraging them to also have their own things, like go and spend time with your friends, or go and, for Erin, go and do your writing, go and do those things. And, to start, when Erin first started getting into the writing, she would write some things, and she put it off to a thing called Pitch Fest, and it was in LA. And she was one of 9 people internationally to get selected. So there was thousands of people all around the world, but what you got was, if you could turn up, you got 2 minutes to pitch your movie idea instead of 1 minute. And so it doesn't sound like much, but you've got double the time, and you're guaranteed, that time. We didn't have the money to send her, and we're in the middle of the work stuff. And she's like, I'm not going. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you have to go. Like, we can't not allow that to occur. We'll find the money. You have to go. And because, one thing with Erin is she's so giving, and then she's so quick to, not hold her ground. Like, she'll always go, no, well, that comes first, And so she'll put herself second in many situations, in relationship, work, and all of those things. After the and so for me, my job is also to then sort of try to push a little bit and go and say, no, you have to do this for yourself. And sometimes that's even resentment. It's like, what are you doing? Like, this is my decision. I'm like, no, this is something that you need to do. So I think knowing in a relationship that your job is also to support that external aspect is really important.
And also, we don't like anything that's the same. Like nothing. Like food, movies, books, weather, climate, activities. I mean,
so basically everything.
Every single thing. If he loves it, I vehemently hate it. Like, it would be on my list of the top 2 things I hate. So it shows that fundamentally your shit has to be aligned, right? The values have to be aligned. Otherwise, why would you even be with someone who you can't share anything with? It's like, what concert do you want to see? What concert do you want to see? What do you want to watch? What do you want to watch? Where do you want to go? Oh, let's go to the beach. And I'm like, yes, it's amazing. I totally want to do that. And I don't. I never want to do that.
So I'll tell you this story. We went across to the Philippines, and this was the baby moon. This was like just
okay.
Was pregnant. She's
6 months pregnant with Bowie. Yeah.
So she's 6 months.
I was a whale. I was like a giant fat whale.
And we had this idea. We're going to relax, and it was on this island in the Philippines. We had to get a boat across and do all of that, and that was fine. And then I just started getting really bored. Right.
Day 2.
So I'm like, I can't sit here and just do nothing. And Erin's like, just read a book, just relax. I'm like, I can't. And so I was like, let's go out of the kayak. So I took her out on the kayak, and then went around the corner in this kayak around the island, and there was these massive waves, and she's like 6 months pregnant, and I'm paddling through, and then the staff are like, what are you doing? Like, she's pregnant, she has to be resting. And I'm like, no, she's fine. And then so I realized that we couldn't stay at this island, and I had to, and then I started researching on their crappy internet, like, what other things could you do in the Philippines? And I found these World War II shipwrecks that I could scuba dive on. But the challenge was that I had to get my 6 month pregnant wife across to, this other area, and there's no way she was going to travel all the way back and do that. So I'm like, okay, the adventure brain comes on, and I'm like,
because the roads, it was like potholes. Right? There's just no
wow.
In the back of some truck with a bunch of chickens for like 4.5 hours. Going up and down potholes, and you're like, half the head's probably going to come out. You can edit that out.
So I organised for this seaplane to come in, and so this seaplane comes into the island, and we cancelled the accommodation.
Classy.
And we went to this, really nice accommodation that cost a fortune. We actually had money at the time.
Yeah.
And we went off in this seaplane, and I was able to go and do my shipwrecks. Like, every day I was going out diving, and Erin could just relax and read a book without me pushing us. It was the perfect holiday for both of us because she got to relax and I got to do adventure stuff. But it was recognizing that, you know, trying to do the same thing, which was like relaxing, I couldn't relax. So I was like, okay, I've got to go to the gym. I've got to do this. And
we should definitely holiday together because they can go and do their adventure shit. And me and you can lay out, or I'll lay out in the sun. You can lay in the shade. I'll sip on one cocktail. You'll sip on 10 and we'll just relax. Yeah, because that's my idea of a holiday too. I like to do like, you know, go and do like a day out and explore. And I like that. But I'm not into the super, super adventure stuff. Like if I'm on a holiday, I'm on a holiday because I need to relax.
What's the point of it? Like, why do you have to have like crazy amounts of adrenaline like going through your body in your like rest and relaxation sort of time? But yeah, we do not agree on a single thing. This is, I don't know how it's lasted this long other than the fundamentals are there. Right?
And it does come back to values for us. Like our values are very much aligned.
Yeah.
You know, there's a collaborative sort of aspect to what we do and how we interact in both personal and work, where we complement each other. But complete opposites in everything we do, and that's kind of cool as well because that also gives the separation because it's like. Erin's quite happy to sit there and read a book, and that also allows me the ability to go and do my stuff. And so, you just got to look for the positive rather than be involved in everything.
And you also take the piss a little bit out of each other, right? Like
absolutely.
Like if you don't have that, it's too serious.
100%. I always say that. I'm like, if you can't laugh at like some of the most challenging like things you've been through or like some of the like the arguments you have with your partner, if you can't laugh at it at some point, you're probably taking life too seriously.
Yeah, I do bring him down enough just to ensure that the benefit is that there is no ego there. So I am doing this for the community
on a daily basis.
Guaranteed.
That's very giving of you. Thank you, Erin. That's some dedication.
But you actually make such a great point, Dave, because as you were saying that too, like I think we can probably, Isaac and I can both speak to this because we've both been in really codependent relationships. And now I'm like, I could never be in a relationship like that again because I did sacrifice so much of myself and the things that I enjoyed and my time alone. And now I can recognize like, I literally would like, I would do everything with my partner, especially in like toxic relationships, which is even worse because you're spending all this time together and it's like not a good situation. Whereas now I think, we're the same in our relationship where we're very comfortable. Like there are things that we enjoy doing together, but then there's things that we enjoy to do alone and separately. And like you said, like actually allowing that time, it's very important to have that time alone and do the things that you enjoy because I mean, we always talk about this from a human design perspective because Isaac's a manifesting generator and I'm a projector. So he's an energy type and I'm a non-energy type. So it's actually really important for me to be alone because that's the only way that I can recharge myself and my own energy.
Oh my God, we're like identical couples in that way. Like exactly the same here, exactly. So that must be the divine thing. This must need that, right? In order for it to just function in its full capacity. These are the types of souls that get together. And I think
that's the nature of polarity, right? Like there's a positive and negative or however you would describe that. Yeah.
Positive, negative,
is 100%.
Like 100% right.
Even the colors are the same. I'm just noticing that. Like we're kind of
matching the same. We're wearing like an orangey tone. Yeah.
This is a darker positive color. This is a lighter pinkish negative.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You guys are killing it. I love everything you're doing. I'm so supportive of it. I love the authenticity of everything that you're bringing to the table. You saw my comment on your one too about removing your breast implants. Like I just think talking about it. I love your products, Isaac. Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I know. I feel like we're both each other's like number one fans because we're just so like I feel like the Living Free movement is like it feels like family. And even though like it is your baby, it feels like it's your baby, but we're the babysitters that come in like every week and look after it. But no, it really does feel like that. And we often, we talk about it to people and it's just like, it doesn't feel like we're promoting it or whatever. It's just like we always talk about how great it is and encourage people to join, because we often, like at the markets when we're selling Isaac's product, we often attract people that are very freedom minded. They're very natural health and alternative health based. So we're often talking about just like how many resources there are on there and how many great webinars are up. And there's so much content. Like that's what I think we said it on Dave's episode. Like for $200 a year, like I think if you spent every day on there, you still wouldn't get through the amount of content that's on throughout all the platforms on there.
I know, and that's just Australian dollars. It's like $50.
Yeah, for sure. It's more about where we can push this now in terms of connection and community. So that is the driving force of it. It's finding your other like-minded souls. It's getting into a community where we can support each other's businesses, strategize about how to move people forward. What can we do to pull people into the private? So my goal, I'm not necessarily sure that's everyone's on the platform's goal to see that, but it's more about, it's the why, not the product itself. Like I'm proud of everything that's up there. I'm proud of everyone that's contributed to it. And that's the members as well, with their wealth of knowledge and what's been brought to the table and what's been shared there is infinitely important. But it's like now elevating it to the connection so that people can find their tribe. They really can find their tribe without that trite, ridiculous yogi type way that people say that. Because people have had isolation. They have had bullying in the way that they've thought about life, and they're questioning and becoming discerning and becoming awake. And so people still have the residual effects of that. And they're still looking for a place where they feel safe, where they can have a voice, where they can meet people, where they can start relationships, where they can start business relationships. So my goal is to excel it to this level of, if you want to have support, actual support, where people will legitimately want to get behind you creatively and what you have to bring to the planet and what you have to bring to the world, that
we'll support it.
We'll support it.
Yeah. Because one of the things that, and you sort of mentioned like it's your baby, I actually don't feel that with this. It's really interesting because when I was running running the high performance sort of stuff, I really struggled with who I was. Because I was the business was me, and there was, so much interconnected that I got lost in it as well. So when we shut that down, it was trying to work out who I was again. But with living free and, the retreats and everything that we're trying to set up, it's actually like I give it up. I give it up to God, the universe, whatever. I go, this is your project. You make it happen. So my job, and I think Erin's job is more custodians of something that's bigger. And so we only sit there and we'll go, well, what's the best for the community? And then go, try to remove ego, money, any of those things out of what you're thinking about, and just go, this is whatever it will be. Even to the point where if truth was there, and we've spoken about this before, if everything fell by the wayside, we'd be quite happy. We'd go, okay, we did our job for that period of time. Bang, we go on to something else. Because there's some other reason. There's a higher purpose for what we're doing, and we would just accept that. And so, it's interesting because people, I think, get attached to these things. But if you're really being led, it's not yours. You've just got a job as a custodian, and that is a big blessing. It's a massive blessing. I love it, and it actually, from a business point of view, removes a lot of that stress. Where you feel like you have to do this. It's like, with the festival, we were, at a point where we weren't even going to break even, and we were up on the money for it. Like it was, there was a chance that we would lose money on the festival, and it would have come out of our pockets. And we're sitting there going, wow. And I'd just go, release it. Like, let's just, God, this is your project. Make it happen. Like, if you want this to be a success, make it happen. And it took away that pressure, if that makes sense, of like, I have to do this. If I don't do this, we're going to lose this, and all of those things. So I think for me, that's been a big thing, and that's why it doesn't really feel like a business. It feels like we're just custodians of something that's bigger, and that also allows us to go, well, who's good? Who can we bring in that's good, who's got the right intent, and also elevate what they're doing and work together where previously in business, everyone was competition. So it was us against everybody else. And, you know, in this, it's like, no, we want the best of everyone to elevate everybody. And so it's a very different relationship.
Yeah. I think what you said is very critical. What I would put as one of the pillars at this point, from everything that I've learned, the mistakes that I've made, and what's helped, was letting go, trying to grab and control everything, or even just a little thing. Like you try to just hold something tightly, whether it's your ideals, your beliefs, your business. When you're holding on to it, it's almost like it makes it harder to flow. And when you release some of that control, or just energetically, or just kind of like giving it to God, so to speak, I've seen that in my life as well, where things are down, money is short, time is short, things are critical. The more I try to like force and make everything work, the less it works. And the more I let go, the more it actually opens it up for possibility, and things, unexpected help comes. And, you know, like I just saw like an order came over that was from one of our YouTube videos that I was just complaining earlier. I was like, we get no views on, I wasn't really complaining. I was more noticing and vocalizing that we don't really get many views on YouTube, but I'm also like completely detached, because I'm like, I don't care. Like, I hope people see it, but if YouTube banned me tomorrow, I wouldn't feel anything. I would be fine.
Yeah, we're just waiting to get kids off YouTube. That's what I said to him. I was like, they're probably shadow banning us already.
Yeah, I get an order and it came directly from one of our YouTube videos, probably the last episode we just posted. So I was like, oh, that's great. Thank you, God. Like, but I'm not holding on to it.
And I think what you said too, Dave, is like, that explains why I feel the way I do about the LFM, because it like a part of it does feel like mine as well, just from being a member and contributing and being involved. Like there is that part, and it reminds me of how we're meant to treat the land as custodians of the land. So by us being here, we have to care for it, and we have to tend to it, and we have to, be connected to it. And that's what it feels like, I think, because you don't have that intention of like, because, when in my last job, and don't get me wrong, like they had a pretty good culture of that, like really trying to foster people's skills and build them up, and professional development and all of that. But there were also a lot of flaws in the business. And that was the biggest thing that I struggled with, was that the focus was always making money. And again, like I'm not driven by that. And it's just a very different relationship that you have when you're in any organization, when that's the focus versus when it's not.
Very obvious when you've made that mistake as well with people that you bring in, and that people that you work with and people you align with, because it's very obvious that that's their focus. And so it just never works out. Like the intention is just not there. And so you're striving in this way, being spiritually led this way to create something. And it's almost like you're held back a little bit because there's this other, sort of incorrect energy. It's because it's coming at it wanting something that this is not meant to be. And so the focus on money, and we have focused on money on our other businesses because they've had to pay people's salaries, and they've had to do this and they've had to do that, and they pay the ATO and, everything else. So everything else is like massively important, that you have to focus on the bottom line in order to protect people's livelihoods and do all of that. But this has been, we've made some mistakes, I think, when the intent hasn't been correct with everything, but it's a learning curve, and I don't think it's done any damage in that way. Like everything that we do is for the good of the community, or the decisions, who we bring on, how we position things. Dave, I've watched Dave like be at the level that he's at with his own treatment and everything else, and literally killing himself to pull something off because he knew it meant that much to the community, that it would be something. So the festival is one thing, the retreats. He was gone for 5 months in critical sort of treatment time to try to pull this off, to try to build this out for what it could be for the community, how we could bring things together, how community members could run men's programs and workshop and do this for health. And it meant something to him that his word was his word, That's the sort of people that's why we love you guys. You're just aligned with the right intention, and people that work hard, and they are committed to a higher purpose. for whatever reason that is, whether it's God-led in their traditional sense of that, or whether it's just that they're led by the good, wanting to leave that legacy behind. And so, yeah, we've made some mistakes, but
in some ways, though,
it's a blessing in other ways.
In some ways, though, you've actually got more responsibility because it's not just like you've got to pay your staff or you've got to do those sorts of things. You've now got to, you're trying to, work with the community who have their expectations, and you're trying to fulfill, what they're sort of after as well. So there's a higher responsibility, and as you say, you feel ownership of it too, which I think a lot of the members do. The ones that are involved definitely do, and that is almost another higher responsibility because it's not just that. You've got all of these owners, if you want to look at it, that everyone's sort of owners in this, and they make it as much as what any individual who's there to sort of do interviews or do whatever. It's actually the community.
So we are answering to them. So when there's something not happy with, or a disagreement about this particular presenter or webinar or whatever, like I'm sort of discussing, you do feel like you owe it to them, because they are part of it.
Well, usually you just say it's none of your business,
but you can't in this. But this, I would say that. Like I said, I don't.
But it's like it is your business because it is yours as much as it is ours in that way. So. There's still an element of having to make decisions, but often it's, community led.
Yeah.
We back and we go, okay, that's a fair point. Why don't we try to do this?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's where we're moving out of that paradigm. Like we've lived in this society of top down control for so long now. And this is the way forward now. It is this community led, or these community led, movements and projects. And I think that's very much a testament to like where you guys are at and what you're all about with Living Free, because I think we've seen that throughout sort of the freedom community, the truther community, is that they form these organizations and they're still under that same paradigm where there's a leader and everyone wants to worship the leader and they've got all the answers, and you just see them, they just fall apart. They never last.
It's always about money. They pretend it's not, but it always is.
Yeah.
It's always corrupted in that. So I think that's the problem, is that once you're involved in that, the real integrity or the real thing that it could have become, the real mission, it can't break through that. So the intent has to be there. That's a beautiful thing. It's not even a stressful thing. Like it's just a beautiful thing. And I think the festival was like the start of all of that, was like the exemplary part of that, showing what can become when you let it go and you turn up with real intention. And
the other thing with something like the festival, though, it involves so many other people, like people that, in a business term, you would consider competition. They've got their own platform, they've got their own following, they've got their own, thing. But what this is all about, and this is what I really like to see more of in our community and, in general, is helping and elevating each other to be those things. So a lot of the time that, there's people that just aren't doing anything themselves. They're not bringing what they could bring to this world, and they're sort of passively watching, and potentially criticizing. And you're sitting there going, well, hang on, bring your part to this, because this is not about a single group. It's actually about changing what we're doing in the world as a collective because of future generations. That's really the motivation. Our motivation is our kids and creating a world that we want to see. But, from that point of view, it's like we actually all need to step up and bring what we've got to the table to help overall. And
believe that you have something to bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a key part, that a lot of people don't have that self-belief. I was very fortunate to have Erin's support that, also...
I thought you were going to say you're very fortunate to have all that self-belief. And I was like, oh, really? Okay.
Well, that too. Yeah, he's got that. Yeah.
But if you've been successful at a few things, you build that self-belief. But sometimes people don't have that in themselves and they don't believe that they have something to bring forward. But I think everyone that's around at this time has something to bring forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if they're good, we'll help however we can.
Yeah.
Like there's so many people that, and people don't probably understand this, but I've mentored over the years to help them in what they're doing, whether it be with us or without us, because there's something in them, that is worth helping, so they'll often call up and, what should I do here? And we have these long chats and, try to help them through different situations. That's actually what we should be doing. We should be all going, because, I've got, this business background, Erin's got this business background, but she's got this writing as well and everything. And there's these talents, right? But everyone's got their talent.
Yeah.
And so whilst I can assist on those things, other people have got other things to bring forward, and that's starting to happen more now. There's people that are reaching out, especially after the festival, to say, hey, I've got this talent, I'd like to help and get involved. But that's really the next level, is people stepping up into their true calling.
And just being a proper community that is actually going to want to see people win and succeed with that beauty. And that's like what I said earlier. That is the goal of this. It's like, what is your business idea? Give it to me. I want to hear it. Where you're being shot down from here and you might be being shot down by a partner and people are telling you that it's shit and it's stupid. Okay, put it to our community. Let's get together. Let's do think tank webinars and let's everyone go, okay, what have you got today? What do you want to bring to the table? What are you struggling with? What's the problem? And then you chime in and you go, okay, well, you need a business plan, but don't do it this way. Do it in the private. Like we could... I have such a passion for seeing everyone just do so well and then being like, oh, look at my little babies and they're amazing.
The babies are making babies.
And changing the world. And,
absolutely.
I'm 100% behind it. Like that competition and ego and, pushing each other down instead of building each other up. There's no place for it anymore. There just isn't.
Yeah. I heard this recently for the first time that competition is what happens at the bottom and collaboration is what happens at the top. And it is so true. And you just see it now. Like I see it very clearly now. You can just see where someone's at just purely based on that.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Yeah. It's the biggest thing that we've been doing silently behind the scenes for so many years. It's like the driving force of all of this. The next festival will be a real display of that, I think. I think they will adopt a lot of that. So I can't wait for that.
I can't wait for the next festival. I'm already, it's like, we haven't even hit 2025. I'm like, what's happening? What's going on at the next festival? When is it? I want to know everything.
It's so good. Can't wait for it. Yeah.
But I got to give a shout out to this community as well. Because after the festival won for us doing our market stall, I mean, Alexa was there. She's like battling a cold or flu on her feet talking all day long. Because we had this like sometimes a literal line of customers.
Did you know you just had your surgery, before you...
Yeah, I was literally at my 6-week post-op mark. I was only just allowed to take my compression bar off. And then the day I got there, I got sick with like a cold. And it was still like the best 4 days, or 3 days, 4 days, however long we were there. Like it was still the best time ever.
Yeah. But people are like, they're asking us questions. They're buying the product. We're just having great conversations and meeting people that we could be friends with, just very, very awesome community. But then afterwards, it blew me away. Before then, I didn't really have much of a presence online doing business in Australia. And then after the festival, basically some people had shared the product in the chats in the community on the platform. And for weeks afterwards, it was like every day I was getting orders.
People reaching out and asking where they could buy.
It's so good. I'm in love with it. I told you. I'm like, it's just all about
Erin is actually going to be our poster girl for Alleviate.
But that gives me, it's what you were saying about this, like people building each other up and helping support the businesses that we like.
Actually doing it, not saying that they're going to do it just because they think they should say it. They're actually doing it. Helping out, putting in the work, letting someone succeed, having absolutely nothing to do with it, like no skin in the game yourself, just the idea of watching someone get there because what they're bringing to the table is great and their products are good, and it's like I will push that stuff out. Dave's always behind, like something that's good, he will push it out, and it's like no intention of getting anything for it. You can't go in with that mentality. So I know everyone should be buying that. Absolutely love it.
And cut that out and make an ad out of it.
And I think it's important too not to come from an energy, because I've seen this in various forms, like people starting up businesses and coming at it with different energies. And it's pretty obvious when their energy is just to like where they show up and they're like, I'm here, buy my shit. And that's one way to do it. It's another way when you're leading with this intention of like, hey, this is the story. This is why I built this. This is the stories of people that it's helping. And the heart of it's to help, or the heart of it's to serve, or the heart of it's to even just like make people laugh and provide something that they would typically buy from like Starbucks. I know a guy that's in the bear community who makes coffee. I've never tried his coffee, unfortunately, but his name's Pelagic Bear, and it's hilarious. He's making good coffee, but the whole thing is built for the bears, and he's roasting coffee. He's in a wheelchair, and his labels are hilarious. It's like the Helen Keller blend, and like all these, these inside jokes. Yeah, and I'm like, that's so cool. I don't know how big the revenues or whatever is coming in, but it's like, he's providing something that people love, which is it's humor and it's good coffee and it's from someone inside the community. And I think there's so much opportunity for everything, almost like a village. Like you could have a candle maker, the masseuse guy,
sure. And that was probably the biggest surprise for me at the festival, or one of my biggest concerns, because you want it to be successful for everyone.
Yeah.
And we had obviously 2 stages. We're going to go 3 stages next year. But we had 2 stages, and then I was worried that no one would leave the main stage, and that the speaker would be there and there's 5 people in front of them.
Right.
And then I was worried about the stalls. They all turn up and they sell nothing, and it's like, well, that was a waste of time. But every one of the talks on the second stage was chockers, as well as main stage, as well as all the stalls. I went around and I spoke to a lot of stall holders, and one of them said to me, like, my biggest complaint about this whole event is I haven't had time to go and watch the talks myself. I've been too busy. And so that was fantastic that everyone was able to succeed. And that's always like, you're sitting there worried about that sort of thing, because you don't want that feeling, because there could be some resentment. Well, you said that there was going to be all these people, and and obviously one of our biggest complaints on this one was
there wasn't enough food.
There wasn't enough food, right?
Quadruple the amount of food this time.
But 40% of the ticket sales were in the last few weeks. And then we had some people cancel food and all this in the last few days, and we had a coffee maker that cancelled the day before. Had to get someone up from Newcastle and stuff. And so now we've got to go 3 times, what we did previously in food, and try to get more variety in all of these things. But we were worried to start off with that the food vendors wouldn't make enough money. And it was completely the opposite. They were running out of food, they're running back, and they're having to do runs to, wherever to buy more product every day. And so now we've got to think about fridges for them and these things, so that they don't have to go off site. And, so it's, that's what I found the most, amongst other things, but one of the from a business point of view, looking at it that way and going, everyone was able to succeed and have those lineups and be able to succeed.
I think that's what elevated the frequency as well, because people were just happy, right? And I'm all about humour. I reckon humour solves like 90% of the problems, right? I'm all about, like, if it can be funny in like absolute crisis, then I'm all for that. I'm
with you. Yeah.
We're the same.
I love like just to laugh at something that's just so wrong.
Oh, especially when you're like in the well, maybe not in the middle of an argument, but it really just like disarms both of you when you've just like had a really like tense argument or whatever going back and forth, to just make a joke of it. Especially the more inappropriate, the better. And it's just like everything releases. You're just like, what are we even fighting about?
100%.
We had a bunny yesterday, but
oh my God, so did we.
Yeah, we recovered it. We recover a lot better where it's allowed to come out, but then it's not like held over.
Yeah.
I think in our early 20s, when we were dumb as shit, like we would hold it over the person, and it's like punishment, until you really felt like they worked their way back in, you just weren't going to let a piece of it go. And he's stubborn and I'm stubborn, so, that doesn't work out that well. We had a bunny yesterday, business related, and I even really forgot what we were fighting. I'll remember later when I bring it up.
I can actually remember it. So that's how often it must happen.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you guys, so we can compare. What do you think is probably the number one thing you guys argue about in terms of business and working together? Like, what's the point of contention that always seems to come up?
We'll fight about it later.
I don't know. Probably managing that workload. So that's now on you. I actually find the funny thing is even though we spend all this time together, often our time to communicate isn't there. So it's especially with the kids and everything, and trying to switch off and do that, and then actually have that time where we can both sit down. It often doesn't happen because you've got constant interruption from kids and that sort of thing. So trying to actually communicate, even though you're next to each other, you don't get that time. You can't go into a boardroom and have a conversation and, nut things out. So, we've had it where I've actually, asked my mum to come down and say, hey, can you just take the kids, for a few hours because we need to catch up and have a chat. So I think sometimes it's the communication, even though we're, next to each other.
And Dave, my biggest thing that we fight about is that Dave, when he has an idea, it's now, right? You got to do it now. Everything is always now, and he does not separate between this is a really massive project and then that's also a really massive project. And I'm like, okay, so what one of that, both of them, now, right
yeah. When do you want to get this done? Yeah, now.
So sometimes I'm just can you just understand that that's not physically possible? His brain just works like that. It's just
I've got to look at your human design, Dave, because as soon as you said that, I was just kind of laughing. I was like, he's probably got that gate, or could have the channel, but there's a gate called the gate of the now. And I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if you have that.
It's wide open, and there's 6 of those gates. And then it's 100%.
I mean, for us, we actually have always taken on and achieved and done a lot. So, we've probably lived 3 lifetimes, already in what most people would do in the different businesses, in the different things.
But it's just not the way I work. I'm more contemplative. I'm more storyboard. I'm more write the script. I'm more I need time to process it.
Yeah.
Where Davey's just
the same.
Do it now. It goes out now. What goes out now? The whole idea for the festival, marketing, what the actual, no one works in this way, but he does. It's just, if he's not working like that, then he gets in his head and he's like, I'm not doing enough. And I'm just sort of wow, just take a breath like a normal person can do. But it's whatever God wants for him, has given him that, he can. It's just, I think what we fight about is that I don't work that way.
Yeah.
And for him to get what he needs out of me, which is everything else, the idea flies out and then it's ta-da!
I work off that passion and that sort of thing. So it's an idea comes and then you want it out, right? You want to ride that wave of excitement
and he's
and emotion.
Positivity all the time. And
and I take it to Erin and she's like, I can't even take on another thing right now. And I'm it just deflates you, right? I sit there and go, oh, okay, because I then, that next positive conversation to be yeah, let's do it. And it sort of boosts you up the next part. And Erin, she's just thinking, I've got kids, I've got the washing, I've got to do this. I've got to pack the lunches for tomorrow. And now you want to bring this idea to me on top of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had discussions with him where I've gone, we can do these ones, but do not bring this to, we're not even discussing door number 3. Don't open it, don't discuss. I don't want to put it up. It doesn't exist on how
we're the same.
I think Isaac's looking at me because we can totally relate to this.
Yeah, 100%.
He does. And for whatever reason,
we pull it off.
But it's not without me just literally going, it's not going to be discussed. It's always discussed. I may as well not say it.
See, I've had to have those boundaries with Isaac too, because I get very
grounding though. That women, that's your role in some way. Men are just let's build a castle, and you're like, oh, we don't have any slaves. We're gonna have to go to war with the Prussians.
Yeah, but I think too, because Isaac's a little bit like that too. Like, not that he wants everything now, but Isaac has like all the big ideas and like, especially with the business, like I've come on board and it is ours, but I've always said like it really is his baby. Like he started it before we met. And I kind of feel the same about the work that I do, like as a Psych K facilitator and like my work I do with human design now. And like we can help each other. And yes, I'm very involved, but at the end of the day, like his vision, I'm happy to go with what he wants really, you know, and I have my input and I help out with a lot of things. But that's kind of how I feel about it. But because he does have this big vision and he sees what he wants, you know, he talks about things that he wants to build it into as if he wants it now. And I'm a bit the same where I'm like, it overwhelms me. And I actually have to say to him sometimes, that's great. Let's shelve that. I'm not having this discussion now about how we're going to get there because I can't think about that right now. Like you, I've got all these other things that are like priority.
We'll just put these two on a call together. And then they can just do, or they'll just work it out, and it won't stress us out.
But the problem is,
what's your big idea? What's your big idea? Energy, awesome. And then we'll still have to do it.
That's right. The problem is,
but we get a break a little bit from the crazy energy of now.
Isaac and I would chat and we can boost each other up and go, that's a great idea, and we can motivate each other. But at some point, we're still reliant on our partners to actually make it happen. So we're still going to have to go across and go.
Unless we bring in the slave concept again, longer working hours, greater workforce,
minimal pay.
Motivation is like questionably important.
How much could we have got done if we all had a bunch of slaves? I mean,
seriously, can you edit this out? It's like a Tom Hanks, like who's the guy that got in trouble for Mel Gibson moment of you just say the one thing and you're just fucking cancelled.
That's Isaac. No.
Yeah, if you feel like if this wouldn't fly with anyone's employer, we can definitely.
But I think it is so important to, and I guess for us, Erin, like it is so important. Like I feel I've always been like that with my partners, but especially now being in the relationship that we have now that feels much more grounded and much more stable, is being that support. And I'm very comfortable with that. But it's also like it is a balancing act always with, you know, my own work and the things that I want to do and my own ambitions. Not that I would say I'm super ambitious, but I feel the work that I do, I feel very called to. I feel very like it's very soul led and it's not about money. It's for me, I really want to help people and help people to empower themselves. It can be difficult at times. And then again, I think too, as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, like I don't have kids yet, but just even now without kids, like it kind of is my responsibility to run the household, and not because it's imposed on me. I love to cook. I just naturally, you know, I'm always trying to clean the house and do the washing.
You're so much better at it. Like if Dave is in charge of like the organization of the children's schedules and when they have swimming and when they have to pack this and when they have to do the lunch and having everything ready the night before and knowing which uniforms to wash, it would just be like a disaster. Like it's like a shit. Like there's no point even trying to.
I think become so responsible very quickly because they would have to learn how to iron and wash and make.
I love it. Force multipliers. Yes.
I say to him all the time, what are you going to do if I'm like killed in an accident? And he's like, I'd have to hire people. Like,
I would replace her.
Again, we go back to that other conversation I was having.
Yeah.
You know, we've got
a lot of people.
Like I would have to go, you know, Russian or Asian wife or something.
Yeah. Philippines. Yeah.
It's very racist, and I don't know why.
You know, they want a better.
Again, like move on.
I would need someone.
We're gonna lose everyone.
Well, they have. You know, everybody has their strengths. What I was thinking, so just to clarify on the slavery topic, is Australian white people.
Yeah.
Up here, it's so funny because Lex's dad's Serbian, comes from Sydney. We have a couple other people from Sydney, and they come up here and they're like, nobody wants to work, and I'm like, I'll get them to work. Just give me a big hat and a whip, and
Oh my God.
We're going to have to send out apologies and announcements on this one. It's like, trigger warning.
I don't actually want to enslave Australia, but it's so tempting.
Half of them are already slaves and sheep, so.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
I mean, that's the truth, isn't it? No? The world is actually slaves to a bigger system, and that's what we're actually trying to get out of in being free, right? We're trying to get out of the slavery in all seriousness. But, that's true. Understanding that slavery is very different these days than what happened years ago. Absolutely. We've actually chosen to be slaves. We can choose not to be slaves, and that comes down to us and our mindset and growing out of that. And the slave mentality, or the victim mentality, all of these things are actually what's holding us back. But when the deeper you learn about this stuff, the more you realize it's not there. Like, it's an illusion of slavery. It's an illusion that you need to be a part of this game in this particular way. And you pull back the curtains, and they're not there. It's not the big scary government. It's not the big scary this. It's like, no, you've just got to learn how to stand, in yourself and know what's right and wrong, and then go with that. Yeah. And then that's where the freedom is, because we get comments, right? And I'm sure you guys get this, because there's a thing within the freedom community that everything should be free.
Yeah.
Right? So nothing costs money. Your time, you can have your own job, you can do all of that, feed your kids, but
you also need to work 60 hours a week on this and pay the massive amount.
And so people go, living free, but you charge for the festival, you charge to go, and it's like, yes, because it costs money, and we've got to pay people who come on and contribute, and we've got to do all of that. Plus we have to survive and eat, and it's a full-time job as well. And so, learning that aspect of, what's fair as a trade, and also value yourself, because so many people in this community give so much for nothing. And then it's like they're actually not respected because they're giving it for free as well. So I can remember when we did something, it was put out for free, and it was a vaccine non-consent letter, and very few people downloaded it because it was free. We put it for a donation of $5 or more. 8,000 people went and did this vaccine non-consent thing. And so, the idea of an exchange, but what is that fair exchange? Because the other part in the freedom community is an extraordinary amount of money for knowledge. So there'll be courses out there that are 5,000-8,000 US.
More, like 10.
And I know that we've got more value in some of the things on our platform for free, like the Optimize Me program. I would have seen out there, similar type things for $2,000 or $3,000, and it's part of the membership. But trying to create value, and then have a fair exchange, is a really tricky thing in the freedom movement, because there's a lot of people ready to tear you down for simply trying to bring forward what you're doing and have a fair exchange. And so, very interesting.
Yeah,
that's good to prompt them. They're going to grow past that, because if they don't, they're just going to be outside with the detractors and the people throwing rocks at it. But whenever someone goes and does that, and they're like, "Oh, you're doing this, you're doing that," I just had this picture of Wizard of Oz, where they pull back the curtain and it's Oz, except it's just a big giant floor to ceiling mirror, and it's just you. If you're saying, "Oh, it should be free," it's like. They're probably the kind of people that have constantly people coming to them expecting them to do everything for free. It's just a reflection of who they are.
Yeah. And can I just say, I don't know how anyone can complain about the price of the Living Free membership or the price of the festival. I have never, ever seen a 3-day festival ticket for less than $500 ever.
Yeah.
Until the Living Free festival.
And also, a lot of people are legacy members on LFM, so they're in for $100 a year.
Yeah, which is nothing. Which is not like you can't even. Yeah, you can't even, like, you know, for the Heal Me platform, for example, you can't see most practitioners for an hour for less than $100 these days.
That's kind of what we put on it. It's like when Darren's giving advice about how to get out of certain lawful processes, and when Nick is doing a lot of work on the spiritual stuff, and Dottie's on there doing her thing, and then we're on there doing our stuff, and we're interviewing great people. It's like, yeah, what is that worth? Like a consult with anyone is more than $200.
Yeah.
But that's for your entire year. So we really had thought about it. Like we were like, we will not oversell it. Like we're not going to make it too expensive. We really thought about it as to what would be feasible for someone to be able to afford, to be able to get knowledge and connection.
Because ultimately numbers is what a community is all about, because if you have bigger numbers,
you can make it.
You can then also have other people succeed in that. So you bring a product forward that's good, then other people are going to support it and move it forward as well. And you know, same thing with the marketplace, which we're still working on. It's a massive project.
Yeah.
But you know, something like that, it requires both people buying and, you know, selling their products and then the people buying it. So you've got to grow two communities. And once again, the same sort of thing as what I was talking about at the festival with all the stalls. You want everyone to be successful if they've got good products. So you kind of feel this responsibility that if they're going to put in the effort to you know, put it on a marketplace, that they're also going to succeed if it's good. So, you know, but numbers, and this is where the focus, I think, for 2025 is to try to work more with other groups with some of these common projects, so they can also access this as well, because the more the merrier, provided, and the caveat is, are they good?
Yeah.
And, you know, so we've got to be discerning as to who we work with. But if they're good and they're tried and tested in the community, then I'm happy to work with them.
Yeah, that's such a critical thing. And in business, that kind of goes to a question that I was thinking about earlier, because what you're saying lines up with different books and different people that I considered sort of business mentors about philosophy, like provide, like, well, one, the rich don't work for money. I like that from Robert Kiyosaki. And we're sort of talking about the idea of slavery and stuff, but just providing value. And then doing the festival, there's people that volunteered for the festival that got a lot out of it that wasn't monetary. The artists that may not have gotten paid, but they had professional, like really amazing film, like, you know, stuff and audio recorded for them. Like all these things where value is not monetary. And and we're breaking out of that paradigm. And when I take a product and I make something, I'm thinking about the price, yes, because I fundamentally have to have the business run and work. But I'm thinking, how can I make this the most value in this thing that gives something to people that it's not just an exchange of money. It's like, this is actually something that will help, you know, I won't make any claims on here, but it might help you if you have a heart attack, or it might help prevent this, or it might help do something that I can't claim on any of my things, but I know because I researched the shit out of this stuff, what's the potential of what I'm doing, the effects. And I'm putting that in there without even saying a word about it, because I'm like, I'm providing something that's almost like a ghost benefit. And there's so much of that in LFM, because I think that's what I can see from your speaking to you is like a behavior that you guys embody, like a belief about life that you bring to this culture.
Well, there's so many opportunities with this community as well, is to kind of test people's intent. And you spoke about the musicians, and they all agreed to come for no payment. We actually invested back into them to go and get recording time and that sort of thing. So they've got a credit that they can do that, and we're helping promote any of the stuff that they bring out. Yeah. But, you know, and I had this discussion with them as well, was you've already shown your intent. I know that you're good because you're here from this point of view. Now I can also support you. So it's almost like and it's the same with the working bee that we've had. You know, you meet all of these people and you go, it's already a big check, because they're not coming to you for money. They're coming for a bigger intent. So you check that off and you're like, now how can I support you? And so it's this return of value. And, you know, because it was all based on the correct intent, where in business, it's always about the money first, the deal, get the contract. Right. And then you lose their intent in what it is. But in this community, what we've been able to do is have people step forward in those volunteer roles. We had people pay for a ticket to the festival, and then also volunteer their time to do 1 or 2 shifts. And you know, from that point of view, you're going, that's amazing. And they're like, no, I actually want to be more involved in the festival because there's part of it of giving back that I actually feel like I receive more. And this is this exchange of value. On the working bee, a lot of people said the same thing. I had people there that were pulling, you know, out the weeds and doing all of this all day. They're muddy, they've got cuts all over them where they've been working, and they've had an absolute ball, and they're laughing, and I'm going, thank you so much for your help. And they're like, no, this is the best fun I've had in years. And, you know, this type of exchange of value, you know, would feed them, would put on music, would do these things, but it wasn't, they came to be part of that community side and gave freely for that. Some of them were in the kitchen helping, some of them were out there pulling weeds, some of them were cutting down trees, whatever it was. But it was, it's a real big difference with the community side of doing the checklist of, is their intent right? And that's what I love about it, because then I know that their heart's right and I can try to help them on whatever they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, and just as you were speaking that, I remember like the working bees, it was incredible too how many people came, and like we had, I think one guy was a butcher and he bought like fresh cut meat, good quality meat just for everyone. We had people bringing raw milk and goat's milk and, you know, things from there, things that they'd made, and just like, yeah, it's this energy of giving that is just where it's not just about like what they're going to get back out of it. You know what I mean? Because that's very obvious too, I think, when people, and we've seen that too at the property and the working bees, where people are coming and, you know, offering their services, but as soon as you turn them down because it's not aligned with what you guys are doing at the retreat, they're off, and, you know, they were in and out in half an hour.
We had one guy turn up in Ugg boots, which showed a real intent for getting dirty and working. He was all in white and he had these big necklaces. And he wanted us to have psychedelic things on there, doing ayahuasca ceremonies. He wanted to bring that there. And I said, no, that's not aligned. And he was off. He was off.
Didn't even raise a finger to help.
Boom, straight out. And I was like, you could tell the intent. And everyone could feel it. The funny thing was, like, everyone's out in the bush. They're like, who was that guy? That was really weird. I could feel his energy from here. And I was like, that's what we're seeing at the festival. One thing that I want to say about the festival is the vibration level rose in my opinion. And everyone could feel that. But there were some people, and I believe in the spiritual side, there's some people that struggled with that. And it's almost as though whatever's inside them, whatever they're battling with, you know, found that frequency harder. And Rachel Vaughan talks about this, that the frequency of the world's lifting as well. And those that have got spirits in them, those that have got, you know, entities or whatever you want to say, are going to struggle over these times. And, you know, so I actually did notice that a few people said I felt uncomfortable. And I'm like, I know what that is. And, you know, we had this thing with our dog, which was really strange afterwards. So our dog, for 2 weeks after, he's been in here snoring. I don't know if you've heard him, but he's for 2 weeks afterwards, I've like, he's my boy, right? Like, you know, and it was as though like someone had kicked him or something. I was saying to Erin, did someone kick him? Did someone hurt him? You know, and then I'm searching him for ticks, and I'd call him over and he would look at me and just go the other way. And he always sleeps on our bed. And he's sleeping in the corner under the table and stuff. And I was like, there's something wrong with him. I don't know what it is. And I think it was actually when Rachel came on, she spoke about how animals can sense when an aura has changed, or your vibration or your energy, or however they see it. And it then made total sense, because after about 2 weeks, he was like it with the whole family. But after about 2 weeks, he was like back to his normal self. But that's actually what we're coming up against. There is this spiritual war that's going on. And those that are playing with stuff that isn't right are not going to do well over this next period. But those who are ready to raise their frequency to go to that next level, that's what this festival is all about. And I think next year will be exactly the same. Better, So really interesting to watch, you know, that internal, and these spirits they can't survive in this higher frequency stuff. So there's going to be a lot of turmoil, I think, for people moving forward as the world's frequency lifts. people are going to have to deal with those things. And if they don't, they're going to be in for a world of pain, I think.
Yeah. Well, we had Rachel Ward on, and it was just last week's episodes. What was that? 18? I think it was episode 18. And that's what she actually said. She still has some clairaudient abilities where she can hear things. And she said she can hear this like a high-pitched screeching of these things going underground because they just can't survive here anymore. And especially like the shift has already happened, but where it's increasingly building. And then the ley lines going into permanent harmony at the December solstice. She said they're just not going to be able to be here anymore. So it's pretty incredible. And you can definitely see it. We talk about that a lot on the podcast when, I've definitely had my own experiences with entity attachment and stuff. And once you learn more about it and have your own experiences, it's very clear to see in others. It's very obvious now to me.
It's so obvious.
And you can definitely see, especially with this shift, some of the things that are happening, and you can kind of see what's at play. It's very, very interesting.
Well, it also takes out this personal side. Like I used to see it as personal attacks, and now I see it as the entity that's attached to that, and so I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry that they haven't got through to that next stage. I've got it with my dad, my brother, things like that, where they're just stuck. And, a lot of what they're stuck in is, childhood trauma, where they've then built a persona that, and you can see in some of those personas that it's protection mechanisms because they were hurt when they were younger. So they put up these walls of protection, which can often come across as anger, or it can come across as, tough guy sort of stuff. But really, they're a little insecure boy at heart. They're struggling with that. And you see it, spiritually as well. I start to see it, and it's like, I can see this little boy inside that's insecure, and then yet you're struggling with fighting against that. And so I sort of separate that now, and it's easier because I used to think of things as more of a personal thing. They are personally attacking it. Most people are trying to do good in this world, but they're struggling with previous traumas. They're struggling with, whatever's attached with generational stuff.
And also it's intentional though. Sometimes I think if you're doing really well, things are going to attack you. And they're purposely going to. They're going to try to
100%.
They're going to try to create disharmony. They're going to pull you away from your purpose. And if you can't see it and you can't recognize that's what's happening and sever that, then you will get taken down. Yeah. So the more
100%.
elevated you become in that frequency and the more you are actually doing God's work, the more attacks you get.
It has to come at you because, and it's almost like, when you get banned from social media as someone that was speaking out, and then it became a badge of honor. Yeah,
right.
Like, you got banned. Yeah, and they go, "Oh, I got banned too," and it's like, you must be doing good.
I know, and I'm like, fuck, I haven't been banned off of anything. I'm like,
he got banned from the US, you know what I mean? So he's like radical. He can't travel.
They banned me for trying to stop child trafficking. That's really. But these things become a badge of honor if you know what you're dealing with, and those that are actually working at that frequency understand it. They go, "This is part of it," and it's amazing how much support we get on that spiritual level. Yeah. There's people that pray. There's people, it's like anytime, Dave, if you need this, and they oversee what's going on, and they can see stuff in the spirit as well, which is amazing. And they can actually provide extra information to sort of understand what's going on.
And Dave was personally attacked quite severely, in a sort of spiritual way as well. So, that processing all of that, but, knowing the people that can clear those things and working with him and have all of that intention. Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard when you realize that people are, or the spirit is that angry about where you're getting to, that it's going to make those types of attacks on you is pretty serious. Yeah. And you have to keep them off yourself, Alexa.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've experienced that as well. Yeah. And I think, again, it just comes back to this time we're going through. The way I see it now is that this is kind of their last-ditch attempt, these spirits or these entities, whatever you want to call them. I think this is this shift that we're currently experiencing. We're sort of at the precipice of like this going into this whole new world, and this is like their last ditch attempt to like try and bring people down, but it's just not going to work. And I think as long as you have that belief and that faith in God, that it's just not going to happen. And I think, like what Rachel Vaughan said on our episode with her was that there's no going back. Like it can't be stopped now, this shift. It's already happening and there's no stopping it.
Yeah. I just see it where it's like, you're not attacking me, you're attacking God. Because that's God's project. It's like, go for it. Go and do that. See how that works for you. Because it's not going to work out well because I know who wins in the end. So that releasing of it again is actually really nice because it's like, it's not a personal thing. It's you're attacking God's work. If you want to do that, that's on you.
Yeah. And I think these festivals, when they're done with the right spirit, the counter intentions or these counter spirits really get pissed off. It's interesting because I've had the fortune of being able to see other types of community festivals back in the States with the Bertaria Festival, and it's a similar thing. It's, a community much like the Living Free, lots of joy, like people from the community that are musicians that are bringing their talents, and there's not like a bunch of people, drugs and alcohol wasn't really a part of the festival and everything. It was just there for the intent and for community and for these good values. And then afterwards, there's always one or two people that pop up and then want to attack it, or now they're activated. Whatever entity is running them is activated. I remember one of the guys, he actually filmed a documentary for Kanye West that got like shelved because I found out later this guy's kind of a shifty person. But after the last festival that I was at with Bertaria Times, that director, that cinematography guy, did the same thing. Was just attacked. And attacked the festivals. Like, they're just scamming. They're just like everything. Just this inversion, and it was just a weird time. But I just saw afterwards. It's like whatever it is, whatever's going on with them, this festival, whatever entity is involved, doesn't like that and finds the need to try to cause division and it's that divisive spirit that
and that happened
I think
to
can't
us,
live.
But we were not the least bit surprised with who it was. Like it was almost like, like there's no attentions that are paid to that. So there's certain people that just didn't have the right experiences, came after it, sort of attacked it. But we weren't surprised with that because that energy was already so evident. Like you knew. So it didn't really hold weight.
Maybe that's why they don't like it. Maybe because the more this vibration increases, the more they're exposed.
100%.
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. So obvious. So I guess can't wait for the next one. I can't wait to see what you guys do.
See who gets pissed off next. No, I'm just kidding.
It actually does become a motivation as well. Like to me, it's like confirmation and motivation. So it's like, okay, we're on the right track.
Yeah.
Like, so keep doing it. Be even, make this even bigger, make it even better. Yeah. Because they don't like it. The spirits don't like it that are trying to cause destruction. But you know what? The spirits that do like it are stronger. Yes. And so we even had this where, I don't know if you guys can remember, we had Grandmother Malara who was on the stage and she was talking about how she could see she called them the ancestors coming through the trees. And she's explaining this to me. She might have explained it on stage.
Yeah, she did.
But at the same, just minutes before, Dottie came up to me, who can also see stuff, and she said, what did she call them? The angels. So she said, I can see the angels coming through the trees, right? So two different spiritual connected people explaining the same vision in different ways. And I'm like, really? And so that was right at the very start from the opening. They said that they came forward. I find that really fascinating. And that's exciting to me. It's like, what are we working with? Because the more that we can work with those things, the more that, it just enhances everything. And, we had some massively successful things come out of the festival. There's a project that with Plastron, with a plastic to fuel that looks like...
I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah, that's our friend Todd,
Huge. And, a bunch of other things. But a lot of people have had a lot of success who are a part of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. It's like everyone got elevated who were a part of it, who brought that intent. And, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I love all of that.
I know. Honestly, just like talking to you guys now, I was literally thinking that like what a way to end, because I feel even just like talking to you guys, and I mean, talk to you guys on the phone all the time. It's never a 20-minute conversation, always ends up being 2 hours. And I feel so, my heart feels so full. I feel so like that, elevated, uplifted, like it's like 10 o'clock at night now, and I'm just like, I want to like go and do something. Like I want to go for a run, or I want to like, let's just build another business right now.
Just fill that up again. So
I know. I'm like, I need to get a little shelf, put a little bottle on there. Just for celebration.
No, I love it. I love what you guys are all about, and yeah, we're totally on board. You're speaking our language. That's what this time's all about now. It's about lifting each other up and coming together. Like basically everything that's just happened for the last, whatever, how many hundreds of years, we just need to do the opposite. Stop all the divisiveness. Like we need to come together. We need to work together. We need to build each other up. We need to take responsibility for our own shit. Like that's really what it comes down to first and foremost. Yeah.
But everyone that's meant to be together at this time right now is doing it.
Yeah.
So I have massive faith in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll share one last thing. Nick Patterson and I were very much on the same path at the same time. Our things interact or intersect, I should say, as to us waking up and then trying to do things together. But we were both really frustrated when we were trying to do things, and we felt like we weren't in the fight. We felt like we weren't doing what our calling was. And we would have these conversations. And then someone, and I explained this frustration to someone I trust spiritually, and they said, no, you guys are being trained up to be sort of leaders in the next phase. And I was like, oh, it's nice for someone to say that. But if you look, it's actually what happened. Nico's created his own stuff and become a leader and speaking out. We've created Living Free and all the rest of it. And we still support each other to this day with everything. But, for those who are frustrated, you might just be being trained up for that next thing, that next level. And so lean into that and realize that your part is to bring that. So, for me, it was volunteering for Empower. That, I explained that story and getting rid of that connection to the money and connection to, the business ideas previously, so that I can bring forward what we're doing today. And, for others, it's purging of that stuff that you're still holding on to so that you can release it and then just have faith that what you're bringing forward is meant to be, and it's your gift and your calling.
And also, if you're not getting somewhere yet, if it's not quite clicking, if it's not quite working, it just might be that you just haven't found your people yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because when you find those heart soul people and you just have utter faith in them and it just works, there's just comfort and it's easy and there's no feeling of anxiety when you're around them. You just might not have met your tribe yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
If you're looking for a tribe.
We're here. We're all out here. We will find you.
Right.
Yeah.
If you haven't found your people yet, we've got a whole community full of interesting people that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It does. Things just flow when you find that. I mean, I can definitely speak to that just in terms of like, meeting you guys and like that first working bear camp or the first picnic. Actually, it was the first working bee. I think we did the picnic the day before and then stayed overnight, and so much has opened up for me since then. And that's what I feel like. It was just, I really felt like, that was the first time I really felt like I'd moved out of Sydney. And then I'd been there about a year. Then I met, the Living Free crew and other members. And that was the first time I really felt like I was like, yeah, okay, I'm leveling up now. Because if this is the caliber of people I'm surrounded by now, like that's got to be a reflection on me. And it's just been onwards and upwards. And, like you said, I think when you find the right community, things will just flow, whether it's in a work sense, a business sense, whether it's just your family and friends life, it's things just flow.
Yes. It's the same thing coming back to that relationship thing, same thing with coming back with who you're hanging around with. Are they motivating you to be your best self? Are they elevating you, or are they bringing you down and isolating you? And so, I always look at that as the judgment on the relationship, but also the judgment on, are you with your right people? And, people get stuck with old friendship groups and that sort of thing who might be going down the wrong path, but because they know them from primary school, they still hang out, but they're doing drugs and they're doing this, and there's this uncomfortable part. You might have to separate yourself. You might have to take yourself away from those toxic relationships, and it can be with family as well. Sometimes, family members aren't bringing anything to the table, and they might actually be bringing you down. So you have to sometimes look at that, and what's best for you to be the best person is sometimes just making sure you're around the right people, both in your relationship and also in your community.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't have said it better myself, Dave.
Love you guys.
We love you so much. Thanks again. Well, thanks, Dave, for coming on again. Erin, thanks for coming on for our audience for the first time. And I can't wait to release the episode that we did record together, because it is oh man, I'm living for the day that we release that episode. That is
I'll just send you this this bomb, just go.
Launch. We'll have a launch code for it.
We're doing it. Oh, it's going to be so good. I don't want to hype it too much, just in case we have to wait like a year before we release it, but people are going to love it. It's so good. But we love this conversation with you guys. Love everything that you're all about. And
you guys are inspirational. It's like our I look up to y'all, and I feel like I got a lot to learn from you. But I'm also just cool to see like-minded people still figuring things out, still going forward with faith and belief, and overcoming the day-to-day like problems or a spat that you have. Like, we're normal people, and we're here doing what we're designed to do. We're here doing what God called us to do.
Yeah, have a crack.
Have a crack. Like, just do it. Just don't ask someone to do it all at once. Just but have a crack.
And if you're listening to this from America,
how do you translate that?
Have a go at it.
Have a go at it.
Crack might help you get there. They'll figure it out. All right. Well, thank y'all. It's
Thanks,
lovely having
guys. You on. Love y'all.
We'll see you next time.
So there you have it, folks.
It was a long one, but it was a fun one.
Yeah, thanks for sticking with us on that. It's so, I love the energy that they bring.
And there's a lot coming up in the Living Free movement this year as well. So Erin is actually launching a women's series, which I will also be involved with. So I'll be co-hosting or co-presenting on some of those episodes, which I'm super excited for. So again, if you aren't a member of the Living Free movement.
Am I allowed to watch those?
I don't know. I actually don't know if it's I don't think men would want to join, because it's literally, we're just going to be talking about stuff that really impacts women. But I don't know. Would we kick men out?
Look, I'm not against discrimination. I'm not against saying hey, this is a men's group. Women cannot come to this.
Exactly. There is a time and a place for discrimination, people.
Yeah.
That is a fact. If
you were triggered by anything in this episode, just know that our hearts are in the right place. We joked a little bit about slavery, and it's not that, we have no ill intent to anybody, but it's also time to just kind of let go of those rigid beliefs and being triggerable and all that stuff. Cause we're moving past that so far, man. People are freedom is expanding or it's contracting. It all depends on your mindset, and we want everyone as possible to be free and live happy lives. And I believe being free from even just judgments and dogma and all that stuff is a part of it. So.
Yeah, I think most people will laugh at the jokes, but if they don't, or if they get offended, I would honestly just say, take a look at yourself. I don't mean this in a condescending way, but because I do this a lot. If you are offended by something, you should definitely look within and ask the question, why are you offended by this? Because often we find this in the woke culture is that people get offended on other people's behalves. It's not even something that directly affects them, but they get offended.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's just because of what we've been programmed to believe. I used to be so triggered by anything that was not feminist and not women couldn't do whatever they wanted to. I would get so triggered and I would get so defensive.
And now she's literally barefoot in the kitchen every single day.
Well, I've always been barefoot in the kitchen. But yeah, I really had to look at that over a period of time and look at why. And I realized that it was to do with a lot of the conditioning that I received around this neo-feminist movement, and women can do anything. And I mean, anyone can do anything. It's just like so much rubbish that comes along with that whole movement.
Say that shedding, deconditioning and shedding the conditioning is a low-key, like, major point of this show?
Yeah, a little bit. It's like the highlight of my work. So we do talk about it a lot, don't we? I think it's really, really important. I think, and you know, we were just talking to Dave and Erin on the phone today. We didn't talk about it in this episode, but just for what's coming up in the next Living Free Festival, just some of, you know, more of the details and the theme of it. And, you know, that's what we were talking about. It's, we're in this time now where I think it is so important to integrate, you know, the things that we've learned over the last few years and the things that have been revealed about ourselves. And I think we are going through this time of people having to decondition from so much of this external conditioning we've received, and whether it be societally or from family or from friend groups, and you know, just the old ways of being and these old paradigms that we've been living under. I think it is a really crucial point that we do need to look at ourselves and start peeling back the layers of the onion, as I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're one of those people, like we showed in the ad before, that might be considered by the rest of society as a little bit crazy, you can go and find other people just like you at livingfreemovement.org, and we'll have the links in the show notes.
And for the next Living Free Festival, which will be coming up, I think it'll still be August of this year.
Oh, there's so many good things coming with that.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited. Nothing released yet, no tickets or anything, but the website is livingfreefestival.org for that one. I'm not sure if there's a mailing list. There might be. And that way you'll stay in the loop for when tickets are available and when more info comes out about that, which I can't wait for.
Yes. And stay tuned for next week. We have an amazing episode coming up. So it's a gentleman that we know as a brother of a friend of ours, who happens to be one of the only people, maybe one of only two people on the continent, or maybe the only one on the continent, the whole continent of Australia, to have done the kind of stonemasonry that he's done. And he's really into ley lines. He's tapped in spiritually. And if you've looked into Tartaria at all, and the stonemasonry work and all these amazing architectural designs and stuff like that, and wondered how could we possibly ever build something like that. Well, this guy actually can build stuff like that.
Yeah.
And and he's got pictures, and he's got a great presentation of it.
Yeah, so pretty impressive. So that'll be our episode with Linton Cummins. My good friend Chloe Cummins, that's her brother. And he's just an all-round legend. He's a local legend, as we like to say, because he's here. He's an Aussie, fellow Aussie. And he's got a great presentation. He's just a wealth of information, isn't he? He just knows so much about like so many things. Yeah, and what I love is it's practical. This was one of my favorite episodes so far. And it's just a great guy. Yeah, so stay tuned for that next week, guys. And until then, stay natural. Bye, guys.